you're a New York Times reader, an NPR fan, a Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson, for several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people.
All right, here it is. Buckle in, boys. We're going to town. Oh, God, it's Piers talking to him? What do you mean? He's literally... This is a 2-hour debate. This is a mainstream event. I'm here to hold your hand through this. It will be ass. I'm giving you a warning.
Feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the line should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of...
The problem is, here's the issue. Right-wingers, in general, are probably the worst people to take on someone like Nick Fuentes, okay? They are the absolute worst people. Liberals have a hard time combating Nick Fuentes' worldview. They definitely have an easier time combating Nick Fuentes' worldview than right-wingers do, though. Because for a right-wing audience, Nick Fuentes is just a more honest version of what they've been taught all along, what they believe all along, okay? So it's virtually impossible for a right-winger to, I think, successfully dismantle Nick Fuentes' worldview. It's still difficult for a liberal to do so as well, because, you know, at the end of the day, the alternative is still going to be liberalism in their worldview, where they can at least say, like, racism is bad, which is true. Most people will agree with you on that. But if there's one group of people that have an impossible job of dismantling Nick Fuentes' odious worldview, it's going to be a right-winger, okay?
Airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him.
Ah, yes, we need a racist dismantle Fuentes. Nice take. What do I do here? Like, what do I do with a guy like this? Brother, you just repeated my take. Like, what am I supposed to do if you don't understand? If you have no command over the English language, what am I supposed to do here? Like, I just literally described exactly that. I said, Piers Morgan is the worst person to try and dismantle Nick Fuentes' worldview because he's a right-winger. And you turned around and went, Piers is a racist, Hasan. Ah, yes, we need a racist dismantle Fuentes. Nice take. Are you watching on mute? What the is going on? Shut the up. Learn to listen.
At all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy, this Fuentes guy, and never challenged him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show and you could ask him questions about that.
The truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining, and he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis that I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform, and Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk as we prepared for this in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you know, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, you know, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which...
What's sad about this is, like, this is what liberals try to do for me, to make it seem like I also shelter the public from my worldview or some shit. This is literally, this guy did a context nuke, except in this circumstance is not wrong, for Nick Fuentes. This is the Ethan Klein take, okay? The difference between me and Nick Fuentes, and I say it all the time, is that I'm not shy about my worldview. I don't have to be, because my worldview is not odious and doesn't revolve around murdering entire swaths of the population, okay? Nick Fuentes, on the other hand, has to shelter the broader public from his true ambitions and hide his power level. No, Nick Fuentes doesn't hide his worldview either, to be fair. Yes and no. You misrepresent yourself as a gamer. Didn't you say you rolled out a centrist angle for trigonometry? No, but my point of view is not different. I'm saying that there are... Okay, I don't think you guys understand. You can literally change the rhetoric without changing your worldview. They literally asked me straight up, are you a socialist? I said yes. They asked Nick Fuentes, are you a Nazi on that podcast? He's going to say no. When I was talking about why we must improve the conditions for all workers all around the world, I used an angle that they would be more comfortable with. What I was talking about is the uplifting of the third world would actually improve and unlock the potential of the third world, because they care about, like, the potential, right? They care about advancing society through people who are advancing society through, like, you know, once in a lifetime candidates and people that come out of nowhere and overcome great trials and tribulations and become like scientists and whatnot. Okay, it's still true. The statement is still true. It's not like wrong. I'm just saying I chose that as the best example as to why I would you know, improve everyone's living conditions.
Point, he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think that's, you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison or his son David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time, I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on DLive for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate, we play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Or early how? Like my childhood or a little bit
your
later?
Childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other.
Bro said ethnics when talking about his parents, dude. DEI in the field of white supremacy will never not be funny to me. I'm sorry. Bro, America is such a diverse country that our goddamn neo-Nazis are Mexican, bro. It's nuts. He said, my parents are ethnics. I don't know what's funnier. The fact that he thinks Italian is ethnic or the fact that he literally said his parents are ethnics like it's a slur. And I guess from his perspective, it kind of is a pejorative, right? Ethnics when talk about Italians and Irish.
And they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city. And they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. I was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years.
Wait, mostly white, but you're ethnics. How does that work? I thought you were ethnics.
In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University and I read a lot of things online and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale.
I'm sorry. It's over. The discourse is over. Boston officially more racist than Chicago. This man learned racism in Boston. Oh my God.
Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but
well, I suppose my first obvious question is: were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume there were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now.
Why? You just called your parents ethnics, dumbass. That's exactly what they said about Italians and your there was a Nick Fuentes in every era, okay? And yes, at the time, when your Irish great-grandparents were coming to the United States of America, that's literally what they were saying about your Irish great-grandparents. Just like at the time when the Italian great-grandparents were coming into the United States of America, they were saying the same shit about them. Also, your dad's half Mexican. I don't even know where to go from there. Beyond like the Irish and the Italian ethnic background, the ethnics, as he likes to say. Not only would, yes, Nick Fuentes not exist if it wasn't for America, but also on top of that, the exact same white nativist sentiment was launched towards his great-grandparents at the time.
And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first,
again, those fought each other all the time. Like, for the longest time, the notion that there is like a commonality amongst these people is so funny, especially when you even add on Italians and the Irish into the equation, both of which are Catholic and beefed with the WASPs that dominated America since the beginning of time. The WASPs that dominated America had more smoke for the Catholics than they did for like Muslims. They don't know what the Muslims really were. They were like, oh, this is exotic, cool. The idea that these guys all share this like common history, this commonality, is completely made up new age bullshit to try and justify like Western supremacy, okay? Western civilizational supremacy. It's ridiculous. These guys fought each other all the goddamn time, dude. He's trying to say the new guys are coming in and they're brown, okay? The new people that are coming in are brown. In the 1600s, there was literally a Dutch nationalist slogan that went, better a Turk than a papist. It's built around historical revisionism, and it's also kind of funny because, like I said, every single part of his background at a different point throughout history has been dunked on and shit on by a guy exactly like Nick Fuentes, just adjusted to whenever his great-grandparents migrated. When it was the Italian migration that was taking place, there was a guy like Nick Fuentes going, get these Italians out of here. They're no better than dogs. They can't get jobs. They're all criminals. Same with when his great-grandparents from the Irish side were immigrating into the United States of America. They were like, get these Irish out of here. Who gives a fuck about these heretics that are coming in here and trying to steal our jobs? At that point, yeah, Irish need not apply signs everywhere. Like, it is so funny that he is, and then also the fact that his dad is also half Mexican makes it even funnier because like Mexican is the newest version of this kind of ridiculous hatred towards a group of people that are like migrating into the United States of America and with false claims that they cannot actually integrate.
Just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop. And then you'd have another wave and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you mentioned you mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So yeah, I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have 0 immigrants forever, or even 0 immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s.
Never mind, boys, is good for him. Wait, he just said we should do 0 immigrants from non-white countries. Okay, but your father is non-white. Is this where he tries to do the cope of like, well, technically my father is a descendant of Spanish colonizers? Is that what he's going to say? I'll have you know, Piers, there's white Mexicans. Is that the cope?
But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador. And it's so many with no break for assimilation. And they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody's a product of their environment. Right? I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last.
Stop coping with this. He's a Spaniard, not even Mexican shit, okay? You're literally giving him the take. What the fuck are you talking about? I get it. You're embarrassed. I understand why you feel the way that you do, okay? But you are unironically leaning into the Nazis' argument about how he's actually racially pure because he's not mixed with the indigenous population of Mexico, despite his father's nationality, okay? Who gives a
few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'll
I'm not trying to
them.
ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think
I'm
everybody
not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of...
Nick Fuentes is such an awful piece of shit that there are varying degrees of associations that he has throughout his life, and every single person from whatever area that he is associated with in any way, shape, or form is fighting for their life in there. You got Mexicans being like, nah, you don't understand. He's a colonizer. He's actually a Spaniard. I swear to God. You got Bostonians in the chat being like, okay, well, it turns out his father was racist, actually. So Boston's still on top. Boston actually made him woke for a brief moment. It's so funny that everyone's like, there's going to be like Applebee's employees in here being like, no, actually, we do not claim Nick Fuentes. Nobody wants to have him.
Racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the South side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican in the West Side on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city. and we're looking for accountability, we have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism.
Yeah, black people are always saying, hey, we want accountability on us. We can't control ourselves. That's what they're always saying, right? Nobody wants crime, dumbass. The entire point is you make it seem as though crime is happening at the point of race. That's the issue. In Chicago, and it's just true, just went to grab a bite to eat and I got killed. Yeah. It's also pretty funny because it's like, if I hadn't gone to the South Side personally, I feel like the prevailing narrative is that it's like a very dangerous place. Except you go there and it's a working class community just trying to survive, just as everybody else in this goddamn country. Okay? And yes, when there is more poverty, there is always going to be more crime. But this overemphasis on the blackness of the crime is the racism. That's what it is. This notion that like you know, black people are doing crimes because they're black and they can't help themselves and there's no accountability. Someone needs to actually you know, pull them aside and aggressively prosecute them. That's where the racism comes from.
I'm outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, you know, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago will tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same. You know, Matt.
Wait, why not? What the? Wait, why? Wait, what? That makes no sense. I thought London was also on fire because, you know, black and brown people have completely taken over. You mean it's not the same? Which is it? They have Asians, not black people? First of all, yes, they do have black people. What the? No, it's not just like. And also, secondly, none of that matters, regardless of what the minority population looks like. That's so funny. Oh, it's a different kind of minority, so it's different.
Big diversity. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, also, England colonized the entire planet. You think there's not black people? What are you, crazy? They have London has the UK only has like 3 to 4% black, counting mixed. Okay. Yeah, that's the entirety of the UK. You just used the entirety of the UK, which is, you know, still a pretty significant percentage. But we're talking about London, dog. Like, what percentage do you think? What is the percentage of black people living in the United States of America, you think? 50%? No, it's 13%. So yeah, 7% is a pretty significant number. 3 to 4% in a 7 million population city? No. Or not 7%, sorry. 4% is still a significant number, but as far as black population in London, I don't know what the actual percentage is, but I would be surprised if it wasn't. Yeah, okay, 13.5%. That's identical to the American national population. There you go. So, not that it fucking matters, but of course, it's a very diverse country.
With you, I have got into that before.
You got
in America.
A knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but...
Piers Morgan is like, no, you don't understand, Nick. I, too, hate them. I love that. Conversation devolved into, no, I am the true racist, Nicholas. I hate them, too. You see? Yes, don't tell me that I'm sitting atop my ivory tower. I, too, have been killed by black crime. On the way to get jellied eels. This is the reason why these guys can't combat the unlimited right-wing neo-Nazi sentiment. It's so stupid. Bro, you missed said Aladdin.
The idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that... and
did Nick just say you have Aladdin? Yeah, whatever. He's being racist. Shut the up. Who cares? Move on. Yeah, oh my God. He said you have Aladdin. Yeah. Yeah, he's saying the British crime is of Muslim origin and they use knives. Okay, who cares? Let's keep going.
It's just to remind you, it's not something...
But you don't have to give me the highlight reel of all of his best racist moments in the Piers Morgan interview, okay? Let's continue.
I have put out there, you told this story, right? And you said that...
You said this, we're looping. You said this already.
But you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
Well... See here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you
well, I'm convinced. Never mind, boys. There it is. How could you call him racist now? This man has straight up said, well, first of all, he said he's a Nazi. So it's pretty funny that he's like, I'm a Nazi, but not the racist kind. And secondly, he has said that miscegenation is akin to bestiality. Okay? That's ridiculous.
You told the story. I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist. Right?
Also, can I just say something really funny? I have a black friend. How can I be racist? Is obviously a stupid thing that many racist people say from time to time. Nick Fuentes is so racist that he couldn't even say that. So he said, I had a black friend in first grade. Like, he couldn't even own up to currently having a black friend right now. He might as well have said he's friends with Kanye West or something, you know, or Sneeko. But it is pretty funny where he was like, listen, I'm not trying to go that far. You know, I had a black friend.
Right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where.
While watching this interview, I have not once heard you say based. How can I expect you to understand the mind of the common folk? Here in your plebeian chat, comments, that's true. Could you address his idea of miscegenation and bestiality and the fact that his parents were ethnics? Okay, we got to stop saying his parents were ethnics just because he said it, okay? Also, yes, his worldview doesn't make any fucking sense because it's stupid, okay?
You would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in what, 19? Yeah, so you're a boomer also.
Hmm.
Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist. And I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay. People can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it isn't at all.
See, the difference between Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan in this situation is like maybe he wouldn't say the Jews, right? Because like what he's doing here is exactly the same thing that Ben Shapiro does. It's exactly the same thing that the average Republican does with regular frequency. It is actually super simple that crime doesn't manifest from material conditions at all. It's actually a direct consequence of, well, Nick Fuentes might say racial impurities or racial inferiority, but Ben Shapiro will say it's cultural impurities and cultural inferiority as a substitute for race. Okay, that's it. There is no difference in their worldview at all, with one exception, the Jews, right? That's it. All he's saying here, is systemic factors are not the reason why black people do crime. They do crime because they're black people. They're inferior. That's the argument that he's making. And that's exactly the same argument that the average right-winger makes, which is precisely the reason why when you have someone like Nick Fuentes on a platform and it's a right-winger that's trying to address his takes, the reality of the matter is anyone that's like remotely competent, and Nick Fuentes, unfortunately for everybody else, is a fairly competent speaker, he could just turn around and be like, what are you talking about? You agree with me on this shit. And then he can pair that up and then turn around and say, the only thing you don't agree with me on is Jews. And the reason why you don't agree with me on the issue of Jews is because Jews control you. They're your bosses. They're your friends, they're your neighbors, they're the ones who control society, and you're scared of saying it about Jews. And one might ask the question, why, Piers? Is it only the Jews that we can't speak like this about? You can speak like this about Mexicans, you can speak like this about black people, but you can't speak like this about Jews. If he just turns around and says that, boom, all of a sudden, every right-winger that's watching Piers Morgan that might have thought that Nick Fuentes was a Nazi and bad is going to be like, you know what? He is kind of right about that, actually. That's the problem.
Oh, Jews are running society. Women need to shut the f- up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part?
Yeah. Yes.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't...
Okay, first of all, dog, I don't know if the number is 1 in 20. It seems a little wild. Also, if your argument is murderers should be in prison, can you explain to me how that's not happening already? Like, what is there a situation where a black person is doing a murder and then the cops are like, oh, he's black, bro, we can't lock him up? Is that what's going on? Mike looked it up. It's 1 in 100 for the most part, he said. Perhaps there's a different reason why he has to back away from that position that he has on his broadcast. The average conservative, they will tell you, yes, they do get away with the crime. Yeah, it's bullshit. Anyway, the point is he's not able to stand on that. He's not able to stand on that. He starts off by saying, yeah, of course. And then the moment that there's a follow-up question, he's like, well, you know, people who do murder should be in prison. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think people who do murder should be in prison. That's not a controversial take. The point here is that you are claiming that 1 out of every 5 black person is doing a murder, which is not only false, but even if that was the case, which is not the case, right? What the fuck do you mean? Are the people that are doing murders when they're black not going to prison? Are you insane? No, the reason why he's saying that is because he wants to, yeah, for the most part, it's not 5% anyway, or you know, whatever the fuck he was trying to present there. But having said that, oh my God, why are you doing this to us? I'm doing it because I hate you. Yeah. Not only does for the most part imply a higher percentage than even the 5% as he suggested, even though the 5% is wrong and it's actually 1%. But regardless, every part of this is wrong. And he's also personally backed away from the position anyway.
That's you just said blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
You think it's funny, or?
I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? You think that blacks should be imprisoned for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of...
Yeah, black people definitely agree with Nick Fuentes, man. Come on, dude. Oh. Wow, I can't believe that when black people actually... experience upward social mobility, they get housing in like a better they get housing in a better neighborhood where they have better finances. That's so shocking. It's only black people who do this, by the way. White people famously stay in whatever kind of torn down neighborhood that they were from when they're poor. When they make money, they stay in the torn down neighborhood, you know? Like, this is the idiotic argument. It's like making it seem like black people are doing, okay, Asmongold is unique. He's the only I know that's done that, okay? It's not even 1%. There are 48.3 million black people in the U.S. There are 2,600 homicides committed by black people. That's like 1 in 2,000. Not 5%, not 1%. Oh, no, it's 1 out of every whatever, like 1 out of every insert number of black people, that number is of course going to be even lower. I thought he was trying to say that the percentage of like the likelihood of a murder being committed by a black person, or 1 out of every insert number murders is committed by a black person. I thought he was saying. Not that it fucking matters. We already established that he's lying. Okay, I mean, of course he's lying. He's a Nazi. Anyway, white people act so impressed when black people exhibit upward social mobility, like they see a black CEO or black person who is in any way, shape, or who is in any successful corporate position. It's like a huge deal and it's super weird. Yeah, there is no difference between a black person and a white person. The fuck are we talking about? Like, they exhibit the same exact class interests. Like, they want to put food on the table, roof over their heads, clothes on their backs. It's the same shit. Okay? The whole point of this argument is that racists try to make it seem like it's totally different. It's so unique that a black person left their black neighborhood. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Yeah, if they were of working class background, if they were poor, and if they were in a rundown neighborhood and then they like made money and they moved out, that's normal. That's what white people do too. The only difference in this circumstance is that black people have to overcome a greater amount of trial and tribulations in order to get there. That's it. You're just confusing. What do you mean? I don't co-sign Great Graph. You're just confusing. Yeah, I know the implication, and you're right. Okay? His implication is that black ran neighborhoods are so bad that black people leave them, which is giga racist shit, which is absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct about that. You're right. That needs to be addressed. The problem is the neighborhoods where black people live are not run down because black people live there, or rather, they're not run down because black people led those neighborhoods into the ground. The reason why they're underserved is because of systemic racism. The reason why they're underserved is because systemically they have been underfunded. They've been deliberately underfunded through redlining and numerous other ways in which the governments that are not run by black people have decided to not help black people out and refuse to give them the funding necessary. Anyway, this kind of stuff is obviously important because it's much easier to just be like, black people are inferior. And even you don't want to say that they're inferior because of genetics, which is what Nick Fuentes obviously believes, you can just say, oh, they're culturally inferior. It's their culture. They just don't want to pick themselves up by their bootstraps or whatever. And that's a much easier argument to present, especially with all the, the stereotyping that you see and the insane amount of racialized sentiment that you see that you don't even think about when you're experiencing it. So it's much easier to craft that narrative. It's much easier for people to subscribe to that. Whereas it's much more difficult to explain to people the underlying material conditions and the historic reasons as to why black communities look the way that they do, as opposed to like white communities that were specifically designed so that white people would be far away from black people. White flight is the name of the game. Suburbs and exurbs that were designed specifically so that they could easily segregate themselves away from black and brown people in these big cities. Okay?
Black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that...
Oh, eventually. Oh. 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder. Oh, got it. Bro is precogging crime, dude? What the f? He said racist minority report. Oh, I just didn't realize that we were doing pre-crime specifically for black people. Yes, that's what he's been doing the whole time, dude. What a insane... It's kind of funny. He's so racist that even Piers Morgan is coming across as woke here, by the way.
You're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say?
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check.
Oh, come on. Oh, no. A real well moment for Nick Fuentes. Oh, really? Oh, you got your data from X, you say? The moment where you have to rely on empirical evidence to do your quote unquote scientific racism, you have to immediately rely on random guy on Twitter. This is why I get really mad at my dumbass haters who are always like, Hasan, you get your stuff from Twitter. It's like, you get your stuff from Twitter too. It's like, yeah, dumbass. I rely on reporters breaking news on Twitter. their own news that they're breaking on verified legacy publisher media outlets. Okay. If I were to turn around and go, oh, I saw this number. I saw this random number from my favorite account, 1488 Himmler's Titty. And he told me that black people are doing 1 million murders a day. That'd be a little different than like actually a real verified journalist breaking a story that they are they're reporting on in a legacy publisher. Yeah, this is it. Data hazard. Homicides are cause of death for 5.5 black males over the past 54 years. 2019 and 2021 was the largest 2-year increase. At current rates, we now expect almost 1 in 20 black males to commit murder in his life. Wow. Data hazard. Random racist guy on X, he says. Well, I guess if you found a guy on Twitter, can't really argue against that.
That for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking because it's not real evidence. It's shocking because he made it the up. That's why it's shocking.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure,
this is
a lot of white
problem.
people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't they?
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people. And people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most mass
what's
shootings.
with the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the Blue Line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Sarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
Earlier in the interview, you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically sure
my father's...
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody... The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking...
Yeah. This is a classic argument. If you've never encountered a real racist, they say this all the time. I recall this from my, peak debate lord days all the way back in like 2018, 2019, or even beyond that in like 2016, where these guys would try to justify their own version of, or their current racism by claiming that, everyone has tribalistic values, and Tucker Carlson used to do this all the time at Fox News. You say, well, you want your family, you want to be able to communicate with your family, you want to be able to understand your family. It would be weird if your family had people that you had never met before. And it's like, that's a really stupid argument, because unless you are directly marrying your sister or brother or cousin, you do actually bring random people into your family, dumbass. It's very simple. Okay? What's going on? Anyway. As far as like, everyone's a bit racist. He's not doing like, woke anti-colonial studies here, okay? He's saying like, he's not doing critical race theory when he's like, everyone's a little racist. He means it in a positive. He means it in the affirmative, okay? God forbid a man only his day. Really funny way to describe cousin. Okay, that was awesome, chatter. Yeah, based. Based. See, you have a really good point here. If everyone was racist, ironically, white people would not exist. Now, there is a little bit of there's truth to what you're saying, right? And also, what's interesting about this statement is that it also basically comes with the recognition that when they're saying racism and everyone's a little racist, they just mean white supremacist, okay? Which is true. When many people talk about racism, they're not talking about like the racism between, I don't know, Chinese people and Japanese people or vice versa. They're just talking about white supremacy, okay? That's it. That's it. Anyway, let's continue.
Your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to...
Okay, but we'd still have oppression based on sex, gender, queerness? Wait, what? What the does that have to do with what we are talking about currently? We're not even talking about anything. It's just a hypothetical about racism. You don't have to insert that. Listen, chatter. Listen. While you're right, okay, that's not the point. What the does that have to do with the conversation that we're having right now? You see, this is the pancakes waffles equation in play here. Okay? I said, I like pancakes. You said, well, what about waffles? You hate waffles. I didn't say I hate waffles. That's a whole different sentence. This has no bearing on the conversation that we're having about white supremacy. It's not wrong. You're right. Okay? You're not wrong. It's just irrelevant in the hypothetical that we're looking at. Okay? Do you understand? Lots of gays are racist. Okay, we're now we've moved on to an entirely separate conversation. What the does that have to do with what we are currently talking about? Guys, you don't have to do this all the time, okay? Just because someone makes a correct point, okay, when we're having a conversation about an entirely separate point, we're talking about one form of bigotry. We don't have to do the, oh, you hate this one form of bigotry? Name all bigotries as bullshit as commentary. And let me follow that up as well with the second point. You don't immediately have to go, nah, that guy has a point, okay? You literally end up doing woke whataboutism for no reason, especially in a community where we don't even disagree with you, okay? Yeah, the phrase, while true, this is outside the scope of the study's parameters is useful. Okay, yeah, I'm going to start doing that. And by the way, don't worry. I'm sure they're going to get to that kind of bigotry as well because he has that too. You feel me? But one must examine where this tendency comes from, you know? Let's be honest, you will forget the phrase, you are right.
Retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
I'm at 125 right now.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father...
would you agree with this interview? Would you agree this interview is not going well for Fuentes so far in terms of appealing to normies? Not... I mean, I wouldn't say it's going really poorly. Maybe it falls apart further in the future. But like, first of all, he is an odious figure, right? So his worldview is nasty. It's disgusting. It's something that people understandably oppose, even if they kind of agree with him, right? That's the reason why. A lot of people like Nick Fuentes have to hide the like historic examples of what they support, what kind of movements they support, is because even racist people don't want to be called racist. Even people who would most likely agree with a lot of average neo-Nazis' worldviews would hate being called a Nazi. They were like, oh, I'm not a Nazi. And they wouldn't even agree with someone who is a self-identifying Nazi, right? So it's not great for him because he's like flailing around, but it's also partially not going too poorly because there is a limitation to Piers Morgan's worldview, because Piers Morgan himself is like also kind of right-wing, right? And when you're when you are also a right winger that, you know, talks about Islamic style crimes that are taking place in London all the time and blah, 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 all this shit, he's just seen as like a more a more honest version of Piers Morgan for people who have subscribed to Piers Morgan's worldview already. You know, he just looks as more of a confident version of this.
Has a job, and if you go on here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, you know, so let's leave him on.
Is he? Wait, what? Is he saying my dad is a racist, but also, but he's not a racist, and I don't want to defend him? Wait, hold on. I need to understand what he's saying. He's not appealing to regular offline people, but he's speaking directly to the average Asmongold viewer. Yeah, but the average Asmongold viewer, I think, is already totally locked in on Nick Fuentes at this point. Asmongold has like glazed his penis. Asmongold has turned into a Krispy Kreme donut for Nick Fuentes over the last year, so it's not really that shocking that once he gets around to watching this video, if he hasn't already, they're gonna be going crazy. Yeah, these guys sided with the ADL, messaged advertisers on Twitch. Asmongold smiles and nods as Nick Fuentes tells Piers Morgan that Hitler was cool and black people belong in prison. Watch his chat on the right erupt with joy and support. Which, by the way, Asmongold's community literally sided with the ADL, messaged advertisers on Twitch to try to ban me, and now they're turning around and typing based in Nick Fuentes on, praising Hitler. How the do we get here, I wonder? And also, shouts out to Ethan Klein once again, who has consistently collaborated with Asmongold, even got Casey trying to apologize to Asmongold and shit. So that's the kind of community that Ethan Klein, Mr. Anti-Semitism Destroyer Ethan Klein, is actually fostering. Interesting. Kind of feels like a lot of these goddamn dweebs only care about whatever their own personal gripes are, and they try to masquerade it as though it's like something much more moral. It's like a much more consequential battle that they're fighting, when in fact it's completely about, you know, fuck Hasan. I don't like Hasan, and I think that's the reason why I'm going to be aligning with these people. I brought this up before. It would be the equivalent of me like hanging out with Myron Gaines because Myron also hates Ethan, or hanging out with Sneeko because Sneeko also hates Ethan, and hyping up Sneeko, Myron Gaines, and numerous other people that have actually despised Ethan Klein over the course of many years who are anti-Semitic, right? I don't do that because I have real convictions and real values. Ethan Klein does not, so he can just consistently prop himself up as like this anti-Semitism fighter, when in fact many of his current allies are either anti-Semitic directly or at least like anti-Semitism curious, let's say. You're proving Asmon supports Nick Fuentes from a Twitter post saying, okay, someone link me the video of him saying that he wants to have Nick Fuentes on his broadcast because they agree with everything. I'm not going to play the clip. I'm going to play an even better clip. Send it to me right now. What will this chatter say? Oh, here.
It's just how it was
rooting for you from Finland.
Yeah, Asmongold has been. We got to do a stream. Does he want me to reach out to him?
I think that we might have to wait till next year for that one. I don't know if Twitch is ready for that one yet. Now, I will say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I don't know if when is sooner than later. I know the position that I'm in.
Rooting for you.
What do you think? Someone who's a Nazi wouldn't agree with things Nazi agree with? Confusing statement. You're proving Asmon supports Nick Fuentes from a Twitter post saying that's the case. That's not really a citable source, Lamau. No. I'm proving Asmongold supports Nick Fuentes from Asmongold's own statements about Nick Fuentes. So if you both were on a stream together that makes you agree on all aspects, great take. I knew it was coming eventually. There's a difference between agreeing with the person and saying you want to have them on the broadcast versus agreeing to have them on the broadcast to argue against them. He's agreeing with him. He's endorsing him to his audience.
From Finland.
I think you know that, though.
Man, Asmongold fans cry, you call him a Nazi? Oh, I'm a Nazi again. Okay.
Fair enough.
As Mein Kampf.
Okay, well, at least you've... that's not even the most damning clip. I know. But I'm glad that the guy was like, all right, you know what? Never mind. He said, fair enough. Respect. Nah, he said goalposts can't move beyond this point. I respect that.
Yeah.
You think Hitler was very cool?
Yes, I do.
You think Hitler was very cool?
Yes, I do.
One of the...
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? You think...
Bro, we didn't shift the Overton window. We burned down the house. We burned down the whole mother neighborhood. Oh my God. This is crazy. Yeah, this is nuts. I saw another clip about this too with no insurance. Yes, and no survivors. And all or nothing. No, there's another clip about this too. Here we go. Here we go.
This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks.
I've seen it. You've seen it. We've all seen it.
Just take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Man.
Okay.
He's just nodding.
Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true.
I mean, dude, listen. Did woke get out of hand and was it annoying? Absolutely. I mean, I yelled about it all the time back in like 2020 and onward. Okay. Especially when it got unproductive and people were just like consistently complaining about, I don't know, whatever kind of movie people wanted to watch. But if you personally think that this is a better substitute to that, you are the most delusional person on the planet. This is insane, okay? We need to get woke back, dude. Woke needs to make a comeback in a big way. Why do you agree with the framing of woke is the silly thing that this chatter said? I don't agree with that framing. I don't think this is a pendulum swing as a reaction to woke, but many people do. And I'm speaking to those people when I say, hey, is this what you wanted? Do you understand? I think it's awesome that some people can't tell the difference between how you cover Nick and how Osman covers Nick because it's all platforming. Yes, we call those people stupid people, okay? Can you explain how this clip proves Osman is agreeing with him? To me, it looks like he's laughing at how ridiculous Nick Fuentes is being. Oh, you think that's why he said, we burned the house down? Like we destroyed all of the safeguards. When he says we, when he's talking about himself and Nick Fuentes and his audience as well, and his audience that's spamming based, dies of based. What more should he be doing? Okay, let me ask you something. What would be the point where you consider him to be fully in agreement with Nick Fuentes? Because he said he wants to collaborate with him. He's saying that Nick Fuentes and himself are on the same virtuous journey of being able to say, Jews control society and all blacks need to, most blacks need to be in jail. And he agrees with all of that, at least by his own admission. What's the point? What is the point where you would say, hey, actually, maybe this guy is in agreement with Nick Fuentes? But also, the second question I have for you is, do you disagree with Nick Fuentes? I like Asman, and I'm going to be real. It turned me onto your channel. While I disagree with some of what you say, I do appreciate the different perspective. Not all Asman viewers are mouth breathers like this dude. Saying he agrees. I see your point in the previous points person about platforming, which is fair. No, the other person was actually making a joke about how dumb people are about platforming, and they think like if you are criticizing a person aggressively in an effort to dissect their worldview and breaking it down, a lot of dumb fucks on the left, the super wokes that have no critical thinking capabilities, will actually read that as platforming as well. And that's the reason why they think like me shitting on Nick Fuentes' odious worldview is the same as Asmongold celebrating Nick Fuentes' odious worldview. So just so you understand, that previous chatter was making a point against the hyper woke, I guess. Isn't it good that they're out in the open now so we can publicly denounce and push against the ridiculous narratives? If you're talking about racism, I don't necessarily think it's good. And the reason why I don't necessarily think it's good is because social stigma has been able to, at the very least, combat some newer people joining the cause and feeling more comfortable about saying racist shit. So there is that version of events that's taking place right now. And I hope you understand why I'm saying that Asmongold agrees with Nick Fuentes, because he has time and time again said as much. Saying we didn't push the Overton window, we burnt the house down, indicates that Asmon is on Nick's side and sees this as a positive. Exactly. The whole idea that critique equals platforming is anti-intellectual, yes. There is a difference, however, okay? Because there are certain viewpoints that are so outside of the norm, like Nick Fuentes' worldview, like Nick Fuentes' ideology, that until he reached a level of prominence, I just refused to cover him at all, because all matter of coverage to him basically expanded on his popularity no matter what. I have a fairly large platform, so I was careful about refusing to offer any, like even as a critique, refused to offer him any sort of coverage whatsoever. Now, obviously, that time is long gone at this point. There's nothing we can do about it. And that Nick Fuentes has risen to prominence at this point. He's more popular than you now at this point is really scary. I wouldn't go that far about Nick Fuentes, especially because of his worldview. Regardless of Red Scare propaganda, I think many Americans are more comfortable with identifying, collaborating, or talking to socialists as opposed to like a straight up neo-Nazi. And I don't think that he is at that level of popularity yet. Having said that, however, he has definitely risen through the ranks quite a bit. And part of that was because of what Destiny did. Destiny openly talked about how he gave Nick Fuentes a lifeline, and that how Nick Fuentes should be more grateful to him, and that he had given Nick Fuentes' phone number to all these other podcasters so he could go on the podcast orbit. And this is something that he openly admitted. I know he is very humiliated and very frustrated by it, but yeah, Destiny revived Nick Fuentes' career and banned a large portion of his community that argued back against him when he asserted that Fuentes wasn't a Nazi. There were people in his community that straight up were like, Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist, a white nationalist. Why don't you call him a Nazi? And he actually actively defended Nick Fuentes not being a white supremacist and neo-Nazi, and banned a bunch of people in his community. Here's the video that, of course, I was referencing.
And Fuentes' treatment of me is so bad. I don't understand. That's something he'll have to learn and grow. Not to sound like not to be too self-aggrandizing, but like Fuentes should be worshiping me, because I am literally I was the only lifeline that he had to like being able to breach like mainstream political conversations. Like I represented a huge potential opportunity to him, and he just was so bad faith in the way that he treats me. It's unbelievable. I don't know why the he would do that. Like he should have been so conciliatory towards me. And I'm not looking for that. I'm not asking him to be my bitch or anything. But for him to be like relentlessly bad faith against me all the time, like, bro, who the are you? Like I can put you on a stream in front of 14,000 people. Like I'm giving you your phone number to like Adam22 so you can go to a show. Why the would you like burn my shit so hard? Like
yeah, this is true. And at that point in time, there was a reason why I didn't even cover him when he was, doing embarrassing shit like I don't know, being outed for going on a date with like a cat boy, a femboy, or whatever the right. And the reason why I didn't do that is because, and that was contrary to what Ethan Klein wanted to do when we were doing the Leftovers podcast, was because I thought there was no reason to give this person any additional prominence, because Nazis don't care about coming across as correct until the time is right for that kind of argumentation. The reason why you don't debate Nazis for the most part is because any conversation that they're having is an opportunity for them to just like troll, right? Because their politics doesn't revolve around like sincerely held beliefs. They can just like make it seem as though they're just simply memeing. Okay, it's a clout first strategy. Exactly. Like they know that they're lying. Nazis know that they're lying all the time. They celebrate it. They cherish it. It's more so like, oh, you just are getting rage baited by me. That means I'm winning. And he's kind of doing that with Piers Morgan as well. But at this point, I think he also wants to build a real movement, so he has to be a little bit more careful. He can't be as much of a troll as he normally is. A snapshot of his Reddit. It didn't take long. Hasan's anti-Semitism visualized. This website looks at someone with a degree in statistics and graphics design. The interactivity is insane. The head of the ADL on CNN claiming Hasan's extremist rhetoric. This is all Asmongold's subreddit 7 months ago. The head of the ADL on CNN is claiming Hasan's extremist rhetoric radicalized a DC shooter. The ADL can be ridiculous at times, but in this case, he's 200% right. Hamas Diddy Piker is openly propagandizing Terry organizations and recruiting people to become Terrys themselves. He's no different than your garden variety extremist imam strapping bomb vests to brainwash guys. If Hasan's not done after this and they find links to Hasan, I don't know what can stop that man. And Twitch wonders what they will do about this. They can't be idle anymore. It's getting worse every day. At some point, Amazon's just going to liquidate Twitch to start up a new streaming service. This is the era the leftists call for genocide against the Jews, but at the same time call everyone else a Nazi. The ADL is putting pressure on Twitch again. Another highly upvoted pro-ADL tweet. Okay, these were the people that were putting pressure on Amazon and putting pressure on Twitch in collaboration with the Apartheid Defense League, also known as the Anti-Defamation League, and mass emailing advertisers with false claims to try and shut off monetization on the platform in its entirety. Okay, this is Dan Saltman, and he's the one who's leading the charge against Twitch's double standards on anti-Semitism culture. Literally, Dan versus Dan. That exact same community is currently praising Nick Fuentes for saying Hitler was based or whatever the he said. At a certain point, you have to understand, like, a lot of these guys don't actually have any real convictions beyond chaos. Many of them don't care. They just want to troll. A lot of them are white supremacists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis of different varieties. They're right-wingers. Ultimately, though, anytime they talk about anti-Semitism, just know that they're actually cynically talking about it because they think they can weaponize it against someone who actively combats anti-Semitism. In many instances, the reasons as to why they're collaborating with the ADL is because, well, one, they're trolling. It's fantastic. And two, they get to eliminate a major community and a major target, and they get to make their enemies do it for them. Do you understand? Yeah, it's the Sabra hummus outrage. Like, this community was quote unquote outraged that there was a Sabra hummus tier list, and now they're talking about how Hitler was based. That's what I've had to deal with for the past 2 years of my in and out, endless amounts of Israel's genocide coverage on the background. That's what many others who have even smaller communities and don't have the same level of protection have had to deal with as well. And they've been banned in the process because Twitch has caved and capitulated to this bullshit framing. Because if there's enough noise, then corporations react to it. His community called the harassment that you received from the Zionist lobby delusional and anti-Semitic a month ago. He agrees with them. Exactly. Why can't we write Destiny in the chat? Great. So what he said, please clarify. You know what I've actually noticed, by the way? A lot less DGGers are in here as of late. I don't know what happened in that community. Maybe it like withered away or something. Or maybe Asmongold just basically sucked up everybody. Back in the day, the moment that I mentioned Sex Pestini's name, there would still be some people that would come in here and immediately start defending him. Nowadays, not so much. And I wonder if it's because Asmongold just basically took his entire audience and just like sucked it in. Or maybe they became Nick Fuentes fans, like Sex Pestini's very own son. No, it takes more effort to clip now, so they're focused on that. Yeah. In any case, that is those are some of the what is this? That was 7 months ago. Diddy Piker lol. Didn't you say you hated leftists or you're not a leftist? I get confused. I think a lot confuses you, chatter. Wouldn't the average Destiny fan be ideologically opposed to him? I don't get it. No. Because the average Destiny fan cares about what Destiny cares about. And what Destiny cares about is spite-based politics and trying to eradicate whoever has humiliated him in his mind. He does not have any sort of real ideological convictions. He just knows that he can masquerade as a liberal while simultaneously saying slurs and things of that nature to continue doing his troll operations. But the one guiding principle of Destiny and his community is Hasan. And if that's the name of the game, he will collaborate with anyone and everyone in an effort to consistently attack me. In the past, he has collaborated with Nick Fuentes. In the past, he has collaborated with Sam Hyde. They are both neo-Nazis, open neo-Nazis, right? He has also collaborated with Asmongold as well, while simultaneously shitting on Asmongold too. Same thing can be said for Ethan Klein. These guys don't have a real political project in mind. They just like lean into it. Everything that they say is pure projection. When they say I'm grifting, for example, despite my ideological convictions remaining unchanged over the past decade or so, the reason why they say that is because it's actually a demonstration of their own lack of principles. Okay, they will work with anyone and everyone as long as the people that they're working with are attacking a common enemy.
Actually, really complicated. No, it isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part, and we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Man.
It's so funny that some of the biggest fuck Hasan DDG soldiers who have clearly said all of it was bullshit from the past have been defending you and shitting on the cult. Yeah, I think like this last year, the orbiters, self-described orbiters, have actually completely left the Destiny orbit and have realized that they were in a cult, realized that they were basically in a cult, and decided to do their very best to tackle some of that as well.
Okay.
He's just nodding.
Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true.
The old media technique of shaming people doesn't work when they're not ashamed. The entire shame.
It's so funny because someone should pull a clip of a journalist asking me like maybe remotely, like a remotely contentious question, okay, about my worldview or something, and we shall see how hard Asmongold celebrates the media trying to name and shame. Okay? If you want to understand what his worldview looks like, because he's trying to make it seem like he's simply excited because you can't shame people anymore. Okay? But the real reason why he's excited is because you can't shame right-wingers anymore, right? Because when a liberal media outlet or a centrist podcast that I've gone on, and I'm sure he's watched all of my media appearances, even has a remotely contentious moment, he probably explodes with excitement. So it turns out it's actually not. It turns out it's actually not about the lack of capacity that the media has in naming and shaming people.
Apparatus has failed. It's fallen apart. It doesn't work anymore.
That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
This is where you talk about...
the way he says it!
Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Yes.
Oh wow! So we're already... Yeah! Jesus, guys. So we're already in a whole different world now. We are all the way in a different world.
Black fatigue is peaking. Yeah, I think it comes from a place of weakness where you just want to feel. Imagine saying this when Piers literally just does an internet show and hasn't done traditional media in years. Yeah, but it doesn't even matter. Like he has like still that same traditional media veneer on him, right? Ultimately, I thought Asmo didn't agree with Nick. Yeah, he doesn't agree with him, but Nick is based. Based.
And yeah, he's okay with women shutting up. I mean, Piers is okay with women shutting up. I think a lot of guys are. So
the reason why a lot of these guys actually go, oh, well, this is just like common sense. When they talk about Asmongold, when they say Asmongold is just a common sense guy, like, what do you mean? It's because they agree with him, and they agree with Nick Fuentes to a certain degree. Maybe if you push him on it, they'll say, oh, I don't agree with him. He's a little bit of an extreme person. But ultimately, that's the reason why they say this is common sense, because from their perspective, that's the normal position. And they will never actually work on themselves or they will never actually turn around and re-examine their worldview at all. They just take it for granted, and they hear other people also say this kind of stuff, and they love it. They're like, wow, that's awesome. Other people are also saying the things that I believe in, but I'm maybe too ashamed to say in polite society. You know? What is this? I don't think he's a cult. I don't think he's spite-based politics. I just turned away from him for his sexual discretions. Well, I'm a liberal, so yeah. Like, I don't expect the revolution is coming anytime soon, even if terminally online left thinks and it hopes it does. Yeah, I don't think you've actually listened to anything that I've said if you think that I'm a committed believer that, like, there is going to be a revolutionary... there's going to be a communist revolution tomorrow or some shit. And then someone actually says, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone here that believes that. And he goes, no, I think it's more than just vibes. More likely this being said, I'm being hyperbolic. A tiny proportion of the US population or a tiny portion of the leftist streamer Twitch chat. Yeah, I'm a revolutionary communist. That's why I wanted Zoran Mamdani to win the mayoral primaries in New York, because he is going to bring about revolutionary communists. You say you're a liberal. You now probably like Zohran Mamdani. How is that attitude any different than like the average Republican calling Nancy Pelosi a communist? Do you understand? Think. Does it make sense if I am trying to foment this this communist revolution tomorrow or whatever? A lot of liberals fancy themselves to be critical thinkers and a lot smarter than the average Republican, but the moment that they meet like a leftist or someone who has firmly established views, they turn into the same kind of dumb that Republicans are. I do understand what your original thrust was. D engages in spite-based politics, and I just disagree. No, he absolutely does. It's all good. One day you will also come to that conclusion as well. It's all good. You'll get there eventually. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have spent the last, I don't know, 6 years making me out to be his primary enemy, especially when committed liberals like the Podjans, for example, have regularly collaborated with someone like myself because they understand that we, first and foremost, oppose Republicans here. You will never catch me collaborating with a Nazi, for example, because I hate some liberal character. Okay? When people tell you who they are by what they choose to focus on, believe them. Okay? That's it. We have a finite amount of time on God's green earth. If you are choosing to spend that finite amount of time constantly opposing your left flank aggressively with much more smoke than you are with your right flank, then you probably aren't a committed or principled liberal, especially at a time when the right is completely dominating American politics. Neither you nor Asman or anything remotely good for society. Both of you have horrible takes and beliefs. I love this kind of centrism. You're right, dude. Someone who is platforming a Nazi and someone who opposes Nazi ideology is both useless and worthless for society. Thank you. Everybody thinks you are big-brained in this chat. Everybody everywhere, all around, thinks you are big-brained for this take. Both sidesism. Austin, close the door. A high IQ individual gracing us in this. A high IQ individual gracing us with his presence. All right. Let's get back to the stupid-ass video that we're watching.
And you know what you're doing.
Yes,
and there's
Austin's
a political
here.
culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position.
My friends say, is Rat Poison versus Stupid Show when it comes to you and Asman? Yeah, it's probably because they are more sympathetic or at least find Asmongold's worldview not to be repulsive, but at least a normal part of the political process. You should ask them why they think my politics is rat poison. Is it perhaps because I'm anti-Israel and they have been primed into thinking that my kind of anti-Israel position is actually dangerous and scary? That's the point. A lot of these people, all you got to do is ask them why. Bro, you want to know how stupid commentary on TikTok is? I saw an Israel GPT meme. I don't know. I guess that's the new way of saying chat GPT or something. Israel GPT, find me the perfect streamer. And literally people in the comments were saying HasanAbi Piker. How can you hate Israel so much that you're like watching Israel GPT memes or something, but then you literally think that I would be the perfect streamer that Israel would design? I'm sorry. If you literally find yourself at the point where you are anti-Israel, but you also literally are like, but Hasan's type of anti-Israel sentiment is actually bad and wrong, you got to be the dumbest on the planet. It makes total sense. No, it does not. What is this?
Black Boy Max X Hasan. I show him music, introduce him to this world, and he teaches me about politics. And then we debate who says no.
They're saying Black Boy Mexican. Woke Boy Max as Hasan. They're saying Black Boy Mex.
Who says no, nigga? 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 Who says no, nigga?
Lost Your me brain. In politics. No, I mean I'm down to collab with Max. Yes, we're working out something. In any case, let's get back to this video now.
Where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist. You're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
Okay,
listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
So
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
Will.
Yeah, and I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say, he ambushed me with your own words.
Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled.
Oh my God, based, based. Oh, dude, it's sick, dude. Can he say that? Can he say that? Oh my God, bro. Can he say that, bro? That's crazy.
In a free democratic society, to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're a racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you've said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
You stand by
that? Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
You just realize how Christmas our background is? Yeah, my background is more Christmas than Nick Fuentes' background. Who's the real lover of Christ, bitch? That's right. A Muslim by the name of Hasan out-Christing your bitch ass, dude. Turns out, who's the real ethnic and who's the real white man here, okay? That's right. W Christianity. W Christmas. Hello. Hi, what's happening? Uh-oh. No. You can't get up here. Lady, you're too big. She wants you to play dispatch? No. Okay. What are you doing? Both of you have more colored lights, sus. You don't love Christ? What do you mean, dude? I'm loving Christ so hard. Look at my Christ mass.
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand here a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people...
Dude, what's going on? Are like black teenagers constantly bullying Nick Fuentes wherever he goes? Like, what the is he saying, bro? He's like, yo, you don't understand. Everywhere I go, there are black teenagers that are making fun of me. What's going on? We need to stop this. What the Did he get bullied? Like, what the is happening? We found the new meta. I feel like this is the new meta. White people are most victimized by other white people, so by his logic, white people should avoid each other at all costs. Yeah. No, but you see, it's different when a black person does it, especially a black teenager. Yes, don't give me your bullshit woke statistics about how whites are victimized by other whites at a much higher rate, okay? It's a different kind when it's a black teenager that's making fun of me. I don't like that extra hard. No way he believes that himself, right? I don't know. Nick was never allowed on the rec courts. Yeah, that's what I like. I'm gonna accidentally step on you. You can't be. Oh no. Did you see the Cartier boys reacting to Fuentes' video? No. What is that? He was class president in high school. He was openly anti-Civil Rights Act even then. Oh my God. What a repulsive little nerd he was. Watch out.
Are violent, or the reason there's crime is because of police brutality, or redlining, or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them.
Yeah. Why is there a high rate of crime in poor neighborhoods, regardless of color, by the way? Why is there a higher rate of crime in poorer neighborhoods as opposed to wealthier neighborhoods? I wonder. Yeah, it's got to be when black people do it is different, though. That's what it is. Okay? It's just, you see, You see, black crime is different than white crime, you know, even if it's the same crime, actually. It's totally different.
And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers.
Yeah, did he say black people always come up to him and shake his hand, but now he says to avoid black people? Yeah, he can't shake their, he says black people are always coming up to him to shake his hand because they're like, yo, we agree with you so much. But he always avoids them, so he never actually ends up shaking their hands. He didn't say he's shaking their hands back. Also, he said high five. He's like all the unks are coming up to him like, hey, high five, man, Nick Fuentes, you're my favorite political commentator. And he's like, no. And then he runs away.
It is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's...
Dog, you're an insane person. I'm sorry. You're a insane person. If you see like a random ass black person walking down the street and your automatic assumption is, oh my God, this random ass black person is going to kill me, I have to run away. You're basically describing your own mental insanity, but you're trying to justify it. Like, not only are you a pussy, you're an insane pussy. Okay? You should be embarrassed to admit this. Not because like, oh, people are going to call you racist. Like, you should just be embarrassed to admit such an insane thing. Okay? What the like, how can you anchor your worldview around this fundamental first principle of insanity? Okay? You don't understand. I see a black person walking down the street, I immediately run away. What the even if that was a fear that you had, you probably shouldn't say that out loud. That's such a psychotic thing to say. It's such a cowardly thing to say. And then these guys will go, oh, it's suicidal empathy. What is suicidal empathy? That I just like don't automatically assume that every person with melanin is going to murder me? Like I'm constantly on the verge of death every day that I exist.
He's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh.
Dude, what you're describing is not exclusive to black people, okay? What you're describing is someone doing a crime. Like, does Nick Fuentes think white people don't do this stuff? Like, what is going on here? Yes, dude, stranger danger is not just stranger danger against black people, okay? Like, it can come from every angle, okay? What the is this? What is this conversation? Like, what is happening? Does he think that, like, white people don't mug other white people or black people? You know what I mean? Like, no, white people do that shit too. It doesn't make any sense. Like, he's just hyper focusing on, like, well, black people do this. And the reason why white people get duped by it is because they're too nice to black people. What the This is before we even get to much larger, much more consequential versions of crime, oftentimes also conducted by white people, but that's, that's legalized usually because they're robbing the poor, but they're also doing it at the corporate level. So, that's not perceived as a crime in the same way.
Hi, yeah, nice to meet you. They grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's the difference.
What's the difference to the victim?
Wait, no, Dude, he's capable of crafting systemic analysis when it comes to white people doing crime. That's crazy. Okay? But I guess even in that situation, it's not systemic analysis because he's just saying like, oh, they're doing antisocial personality disordered forms of violence, like, someone having like a psychotic outbreak. But what's really interesting is Piers shouldn't say, oh, but what's the difference to the victims? While that is true, the real question he needs to ask here is, what's the difference between like like antisocial crimes versus what you factor in as like gang crimes, like gang violence. Okay? Because ultimately both of those versions of violence are still very much clearly coming from material conditions, or at least material conditions play a formative role in not addressing the mental health complications that take place, for example, right? Or especially when it comes to gang violence, right? Gang violence is directly born out of being born into an area where you have no other options. You have no other alternatives. What is Kirk laugh? What the? That's great. Okay, guys. School shootings come from material conditions? Yes, of course. What the do you mean? Everything still goes back to that same analysis, at least for me. One, mass availability of guns, because the gun manufacturing industry is one of the most important domestic industries in this country, and therefore there is no reasonable gun control because gun manufacturers pump a shit ton of money into our politicians. What do you think that creates? What kind of dangerous environment that does that cultivate? That's number one. Number two, many of the school shooters are actually, experiencing severe mental distress. That severe mental distress can come from a broken house, or can come from the fact that this person is at home, not getting the same parenting that they possibly could get, or the fact that they can't go and get mental health treatment, right? The inaccessibility of mental health treatment still stems from the fact that we privatize healthcare in this country. So clearly, those are all material reasons as to why school shootings are happening in the United States of America with regular frequency, and it doesn't happen anywhere else. Bullying isn't a material condition? No, but an inability to address bullying is. Okay? Do you think every single instance of school shooting is happening because of bullying? Where do you think they get the guns? They get the guns because the guns are readily available. Why are they readily available and easy to purchase? Because there's more guns in circulation in the marketplace than there are people in this country. Why is that the case? Because gun manufacturing is a very important domestic industry, and they care more about generating profits year over year than they care about the safety and security and social welfare of average Americans. So they have designed a system where there is no gun control in this country. That is the reason why in the United States of America, amongst all other OECD nations, is unique with how frequent gun violence is a major problem, especially school shootings. Okay? It's not just bullying. Do you think people don't get bullied in Scandinavian countries, for example? You think they don't get bullied over there? You think they don't get bullied in London? They get bullied everywhere. Bullying is consistent. Mental health complications is consistent. But the only thing that's inconsistent between the United States of America and other nations is the availability and access of an arsenal of weapons. Anyway.
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime, and it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And what proportion? I'm curious.
This is the thing about Fuentes' rhetoric. This really boils down to him saying for white people it's only the exception, but for black people it's the trend. And Piers isn't equipped to deal with that, which is actually bad if his whole goal is to let the audience judge for themselves. Most people won't dissect the statement, but it still seeps into how they think. Yeah.
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Is my mic working?
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or are involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white.
I wonder why. Is it genetic inferiority or cultural inferiority, or is it a direct consequence of the fact that there are more black people living in abject poverty than there are white people per capita, of course? Okay. The per capita argument is easy to comprehend when you realize that it is actually poverty and systemic discrimination and a lack of interest in addressing the previous incredibly violent, systematized, racialized versions of racialized discrimination that is the reason why black people are living in poverty and by higher rates than white people are. This doesn't mean that white people are doing great, okay? That's not what I'm saying at all. But ultimately, that is the reason. It's either that or some other thing. Nick Fuentes believes it's some other thing, okay? And that some other thing is racial, genetic, or cultural inferiority to whites.
People that are school shooters compared to the entire white population, and everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just...
Wait, this is also... Yeah, you lied. You also lied about what proportion of black people are also doing murders in the beginning of this conversation. Like, so what's the point here? Like, what proportion of all white people, like, what's the percentage of white people that have done school shootings as opposed to all white people that haven't done school shootings is stupid. It's also stupid to say what percentage of black people have actually engaged in murder as opposed to all black people, except it's not dumb if you want to propagandize that position by simply lying about the proportion of black men that have engaged in the act of murder, which he also cynically frames as in their lifetime, they will potentially do a murder, and then straight up lie about the number when he said 1 in 20, only to then turn around and go, oh, well, I saw it on Twitter.
It's not that
what
smart.
difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference. The difference is
what I'm saying to you is by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably...
How do you explain the significant difference in the crime rate between poor blacks and poor whites? Probably not something you'd analyze because it'd shatter your virtuous narrative. Wait, what? The crime rate between poor blacks and poor whites, they have the same crime rates. What the are you talking about? No, the real racist ball knowers wouldn't say the crime rates between poor whites and poor blacks. The real racist ball knowers would say, what's the difference between cross-racial crimes? Okay? If you want to be a better racist, you should actually not advance this argument, which is stupid. You should actually advance the other argument. There's an answer for that as well. If you would like me to explain to you, I can also explain to you that as well, because it's obviously when you're going to commit a crime, you're going to commit a crime towards people that in most circumstances, especially crimes born out of direct poverty, like, you know, thefts and robberies and whatnot, you're going to do it to people that have money, right? And black people, by and large, live in urban environments as opposed to white people that live in the suburbs or rural areas. And therefore, the moneyed groups oftentimes happen to be white on average. And therefore, when white people are stealing, they're stealing from other white people. But when black people are stealing, they're not usually stealing from other black people, but they're stealing from people who do have money, especially in the neighborhoods, or at least close enough to the neighborhoods that they live in. So there is an answer to the actual racist ball knowers that know the better talking point, but you didn't even get there because you're stupid. You should become a better racist, I think. If you wanna be a better racist, you should learn the proper talking points. Not only are you racist, but you're not even good at it. The other reason for why there is any sort of disparity within crime rates is because obviously black neighborhoods are over-policed. Even, I mean, one of the greatest examples for this is, of course, the prevalence of, you know, smoking weed, for example, or doing cocaine, doing drugs and whatnot. White people and black people do drugs at the same rates, and yet black people are actually over-policed for the same exact types of drug crimes. They get longer sentences for the same exact drug possession crimes, for example. And on top of that, once they're in the system, because there's no leniency towards black people doing the exact same thing, then the sentencing disparity that exists, it's much harder to come back from that, leading them into a life of poverty and maybe more crime as a consequence of that. this is the reason why a lot of people, when they talk about 1350, are actually just simply looking at arrest numbers and not convictions, especially in a country where, you know, clearance rates are incredibly low, in a country where where black people are over sentenced and oftentimes found guilty of crimes that they later are exonerated from. Anyway, what happened? Why is he not responding? Did he get offended when I said he was he was not only an L racist, but just not even good at doing racism? ChatGPT, please craft an elaborate narrative. Yeah, why you can't compare based on race. The fact that predominantly white localities rarely approach levels of disadvantage found in predominantly black and to a lesser extent Hispanic areas makes it difficult to compare the race and ethnic specific effects of structural disadvantage on race and ethnic specific levels of violence. He's getting, no, he's getting bullied by black teenagers right now. No, they found him. No, they found him in the library. Terrifying. Anyway, let's continue.
Presumably, your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
you are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion?
Okay, yeah. What proportion of black men are violent murderers? Well, the number I made up in my mind is 1 in 20. Like, okay.
Of black men have committed violent crimes. It's probably like 5%. I guess
probably, you know, I saw it on X. Probably, dude. Also, I love that he is comparing school shootings to all violent crime. He's not comparing like what proportion of white people are responsible for all violent crime as opposed to you know, the proportion of black men. And I'm sure, especially given like what violent crime is, which includes like, you know, aggravated assault and all manner of different thefts and whatnot. I'm sure that given the poverty element that we already talked about, if you make the proportionality argument, certainly the proportion of black people that are doing violent crime is going to be higher than the proportion of white people doing violent crime. There's more white people. White people are also in better material circumstances as opposed to black people in general. But once again, that is not a byproduct of genetic differences, and that is not a byproduct of cultural differences, but instead a byproduct of poverty. That's it. So if you actually want to solve crime, you have to solve poverty, but none of these actually want to solve poverty because they would rather just keep being racist. And this is also precisely the reason why I always say, like, these guys are fake. Whenever they talk about, you know, left populist sentiment, it's totally bullshit. Because at the end of the day, their analysis is utterly devoid of alleviating poverty. They don't care about that at all. The argument Piers Morgan is making here, for the record, is actually a decent one. He's saying, well, you see a black person and you automatically assume that they're a criminal, but you don't see a white student going to school and automatically assume that they're a school shooter. That's what he's saying. He's trying to explain to Nick Fuentes why he's being racist, but Nick Fuentes is trying to move the conversation away to like these ridiculous false equivalencies.
I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools, why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the black.
That's true. I like that he even factors in property tax into this equation, which is hilarious because like he also knows why, you know, schools in predominantly black neighborhoods are underfunded. That means he knows. He must know, right? I hope Piers Morgan knows.
Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you know, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, you know, it's just not.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion
again,
of the population.
Are you hearing it? No.
See, I think the trouble with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney. And when you say, you know, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
Dude, when I see a 20-year-old wearing a suit and tie saying gangbangers. Like, how the do you look at this goddamn nerd and go, that's my based heroic figure, dog? How is that possible? He's just afraid of black children. Like, that's most of his motivating principle comes from being afraid of black people. And he's not even embarrassed to admit that. Okay. And he says she's like gangbangers. And you're out here being like, that guy is so based, bro. That guy is so based. He's a whole ass dweeb, dude. What the? I mean, just look at Asman. Okay. That's, oh, yeah, you're right. At least he looks like he takes a shower every now and then. Jesus Christ. Ugh. .25% of black people commit murder and 0.27% of white people commit murder. Yeah, he's not even talking about murder. He was talking about violent crime in general. Did his first grade black friend bully him? Or why is he afraid of black children? Do you guys stop listening to dudes who don't shower? Is the question that someone had in the chat. And the answer is, if you met someone, okay, and you thought they were brilliant, and then you actually encounter them in the real world for once, and they were stinky as hell, would you see him in the same way? Yeah, if I can smell you, and it's not like a one-off, you know, because we just played basketball or something, I'm probably going to think less of you. Okay? It's true. Oh my God, everyone thinks, yeah, I'm describing a Greek philosopher. Yeah, exactly. The only place to spit in a rich man's home is his face. Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. The modern day Diogenes is actually going, yeah, boys. You got it.
Okay.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No, yet, tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise.
I mean, Piers is also identifying exactly what Nick Fuentes has been doing, which, you know, I guess he's not exactly sheltering his worldview here, but it's like, it's fine if white people do crimes. I just don't with black people doing crimes is basically the take here.
Size your mind. Maybe
no one's buying this. This argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the.
I can't believe Piers Morgan is kind of cooking him here. He's doing the thing. He's doing the thing where he's like trying to bring the conversation back. Like, he is operating the per capita argument holds. Piers Morgan gave the per capita argument back to him about school shootings, right? Like, the percentage of black people that are responsible for school shootings is the same. Like, it's adjusted to the population pretty much, give or take. But he wants to compare like school shootings committed by white people across the entire board, like across the entire population of white people, as opposed to all violent crimes, right? As opposed to all violent crimes, not just gang violence, not just mass shootings in general, but all violent crimes, right? And you can't do that. That's an entirely separate statistic. And the reason why he's trying to do that is because he basically ran with that narrative in the beginning to say, like, oh, it's a 1 in 20, 5% of black people do a violent crime, which is bullshit.
Where does that leave us? We have 2 weeks left in the year before we go on our Christmas hiatus. I'm not a big fan of any kind of hiatus. I would prefer just to work, but it is taxing. It is grueling, of course. And there's a lot of infrastructure here that requires me to work all day, every day, Monday to Friday, with some extra work on the weekends, usually meetings. And I'm probably gonna have a stroke.
You can say that you're a hypocrite. We all know that you silence anyone that dare to do a little poop sock. Shut the up. Barry White's gonna buy Hasan PBS? No. Yeah, apparently Tim Pool is running out of funds because Russia cut his money. I don't understand how guys like this actually get into debt. Like, I don't get it. Like, how much growth have you had? How much, like, isn't it supposed to be like a fairly cheap production? I guess he does have a lot of people that he employs and stuff, right? He spent it all on beanies. He built a compound. Yeah, but he built a compound in like what, West Virginia or some shit, right? Like that's not, you know, that's expensive, but you can probably build that with the same price of this house that I bought, you know? And I just assume, bro, we're talking about a guy who is not operating with your budget, okay? Remember, he was getting like what, $4 million from the Russian government, okay? That's on top of the revenue that he's generating. That's crazy. If you burn through that shit, what the hell were you spending it on? You didn't even get the Turkish hair transplants. Where did it go? You know what I mean? He did spend a lot of money on advertising. Maybe that's what it is. He also tried making a skateboarding brand sponsoring canceled skaters, Lamau. Stop blowing the Russia bag. I want one, Goofy. You'd be surprised how often the answer is gambling. Hasan, Drake is addicted to that shit. That's true. Anyway, we got to keep going with this.
Victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment? People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment, and we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger.
Now we know. Now we know where the money went, dude. It's like that meme. It was like $200,000 on a NASCAR advertisement. Please, someone help me. Someone help me budget this, guys. I can't do it.
Danger in terms of probability it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing.
They got their pants around the ankles. Dude, the funniest part about people who try to make it seem like their racist politics are actually so new and so unique and so anti-establishment is that they end up sounding like people's grandparents. Okay? Like, how have you not figured out a new way to say racist shit? They're coming around with a jalopy with their pants around their ankles. Pick up your pants, please. Rush Limbaugh's channeling through him. Bro, Rush Limbaugh would probably be like, what the f are you saying? That's not even Rush Limbaugh's generation, brother. That's like pre-William F. Buckley type shit.
The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in the city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black on white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago. Right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already...
Wait, why? I mean, if you don't understand that you know, black on black crime and white on white crime is happening at the exact same levels because people end up doing crimes to their immediate neighbors first and foremost, then why wouldn't you be afraid? If you think black on black crime is far higher for some reason, then Nick Fuentes is honest and true, okay? That's the limit with right-wingers talking to someone like Nick Fuentes. If Nick Fuentes wasn't so flustered in this moment, he would probably say as such. He'd be like, okay, well, you brought that up yourself. You agree with me. I'm just simply saying the quiet part out loud that you're too afraid to admit.
Conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living...
Like, do you see what I mean, though? Because, like, the only problem that Piers Morgan, I guess, at this point has with Nick Fuentes is that he says he's a racist and Piers doesn't, you know? Like, why would anybody go, okay, well, you know, you guys both agree that black people are violent, it seems, okay? Then the guy who also then follows that up by saying, yeah, you know what? I'm not afraid to say it. They're violent, and that's why I avoid them, is probably correct if they're operating, because they seemingly are operating on the same moral playing field.
Anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist, so they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a...
She didn't get shot. She got stabbed.
Largely.
Also, ironically enough, by a mentally ill person. So it's not just white people that seemingly do SSRI-born crimes in the way that you described school shootings. Turns out, you know, black people can also be mentally ill. But of course, because you're a white supremacist, when it's a mentally ill black person, that's because he's black. Okay? That's the difference. That's what it is. Yes, dude, there is a real problem with mental illness in this country, okay? That's the difference, though. When a black person who has significant mental health complications who ends up snapping and doing something insane, like a horrifying act of violence, you know, you chalk that up as yet another instance of black crime. This is how they are. When a white person does it, you're like, well, the reason why the white person did it is because they were demonstrating antisocial personality disordered behavior. I have no SSRI stare rude. I mean, you know what I mean. I'm just using the stupid ass thing that he was saying to describe people experiencing mental health complications.
In this city, in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood.
Huge criminal population. I wonder what he means.
I think that that's extremely desirable, and I think even
Nick,
black people do.
Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews,
but you're the
Chinese,
product of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
No! No! Oh, no! Hey, yo, chill. Look at his face. Hey, debunking. Guess what, dude? The fact checkers got you on that one, didn't they? Oh, no. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, this is so stupid. Every other race wants to do every other race is against race mixing. I have, with the exception of like Dr. Umar or whatever, I've never met a black person that has said that they need to make miscegenation illegal. Okay? The difference is there are certain groups of people in this country of every type of background that say, oh, you got to keep it in the family. You got to keep it in the family. I'm not one of those people. I think it's silly, whatever, right? But there's only one group of people that take it a step beyond and actually want to roll back the clock on how things used to be. And that is not even all white people, of course, obviously, but a specific kind of white person that says, we got to make it illegal. Okay? That's the difference. That's the difference. Yeah, people have, this is also like the difference between like, you know, dating preferences versus people just like writing off entire races, right? Like everyone has dating preferences. It's normal. It's healthy. It's understandable, okay? Especially if you have, I guess, let's say, tasted the rainbow, okay? And you've made up your mind on like what kind of person you enjoy being around. Oh yeah, I thought you were going to bring up Israel. Yeah, I mean, Israel is also you know, the white supremacist paradise in that regard. So yes, you're right. It is also a fascist country, which is precisely the reason why interfaith marriages are not only frowned upon, but also technically not considered by the state in Israel. And also, the guys I'm talking about here in America are the American fascist white supremacists. My point is, I've never met a black person, maybe they exist out there, but I don't think it's the norm, that says, oh, we got to make it illegal. We got to make it illegal for black people to marry white people. Okay? Clarence Thomas. Okay, dude. His wife is white. Okay? Shut the up. That doesn't count. Okay? That is the one exception. That's the one exception. And he has a white wife. Come on. That's one guy. And I never met him. So technically my point still stands. And if you say Candace Owens' husband is also white, I'm beginning to notice something. Maybe Dr. Umar was right. What the hell is going on? No, but it is literally just, it is literally Clarence Thomas, I guess. Anyway, never ask a racist the ethnicity of their significant other. True.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's say
really.
for the sake of
Not
argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
For the sake of
you're
argument,
literally
we
the
can
very
say sure.
person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
It's not white,
and
though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a one
really.
drop
You just
rule
keep
thing.
saying.
Damn, get him, Piers. Yeah, tell him. Yeah, that's right. That's right, dude. Yeah, you're Hispanic.
You only want to live in a white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself.
Hispanic
You've
and
literally-
race, both of them are idiots. I know, but it's fun. Have you considered that it's funny that he's actually sweating? Especially because all of this is totally and utterly inconsequential. That's my point, at least, right? Like every single part of this is completely made up and totally arbitrary and is ridiculous to even spend any time on like how we have to segment off society, which is, I think, the greatest counter to the ideology that a Mexican neo-Nazi could present. Okay? A product of technically race mixing. And I'm not just saying that because I always say I'm white Chinese, okay? And want to be white Chinese. And I am, in my heart and soul, white Chinese. That's not the reason why I'm saying that. I know many people are going to come in here and be like, Hasan, you're only saying that because you think you're Chinese. Like, no, I know I'm Chinese. That's the difference. And yeah, race is arbitrary. Okay, let's continue.
And I live
Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here though, but I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing.
Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are
black?
black? How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say,
bro, this is again another limitation of the caucasity demonstrated by Piers Morgan. How many of your friends are black? It was like, this is such a dumb question. Name all your black friends right now. I like that he named two famously. Is Sneeko seriously black? I mean, he's Haitian. I think he's Haitian Filipino. But also, this is the dumbest. This is the dumbest argument. And his response literally is two white supremacist black people, at least. I don't know where they're at right now in their politics, but they were at some point when they were friends with Nick Fuentes.
you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. That it doesn't come from a place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll.
Wait, what just happened?
What he said. That it doesn't come from.
The fuck? I want to know what he said. Hey, yo, Piers Morgan uncensored. Oh, he said the N-word? Bro, at that point, cutting that off is just serving his purpose. You know what I mean? What are you doing? Why don't they just bleep it? I know you want to monetize this shit, you goddamn media demon, you. But yeah, what the? This is what he said.
You say you just want to be away from any black people, walk.
I'll tell you verbatim what he said. He said, so you use the N-word. I said, yeah. He goes, well, when niggas are being niggas. I said, so true. That's so true. So they feel like they're in complete agreement with me.
Wow, he's so. Can he say that? Oh my God, he's so cool. He's so cool. He's so edgy and cool.
Place of, and you use the word aversion. That's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see.
Here we go with the white identitarian bullshit, dude. Oh my God. Even the races became woke, brother. What is happening? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not a bigot. I'm a race realist. Oh, I just want to save white people. White people are under attack. It's like the permanent victimhood narrative. I feel like that shit is also un-American. Like, yeah, there's always been that kind of like motivating ideology amongst like some white people, right? but it's loser shit, and I feel like it's not a very American sentiment. The Westoid is incapable of transcending liberalism is true. Yeah. I just want white people to have a safe space. That kind of whining is the most American. What are you talking about? No, I give Americans credit. While being a very racist country in its fundamentals, being, and having a lot of racial wounds that have not healed or have even been addressed, Americans by and large are much more. America is one of the most diverse nations on the planet, and Americans are by and large much more tolerant, I would say, than other countries are. This doesn't mean that there isn't like a tremendous amount of racism. It's systematized, and it yields these results that we see, that we experience, that Nick Fuentes can use to create this whiny ass narrative. But the lost cause shit is like loser shit. What's good? Are you out? All right, get the out of here, bro.
This great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man.
The audacity of insane racists to literally victim blame a woman who got stabbed to death on a bus is psychotic, by the way. Like, that is psychotic. Like, she was too woke, too lip-tarded. That's why she got stabbed in the neck. What an insane thing to say. It's just so psychotic. Oh, it was a train? My bad. It wasn't a bus. It was a light rail train. I apologize. Like, the idea that, like, you're supposed to be, like, constantly in an environment of panic around anyone with, like, a little bit of melanin. Duop, mods, where's Kaya? I've hired someone to abuse her off screen. That's where she's not here right now. He said mods. Yeah, she's doing her daily beatings.
To be safe, and if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him.
How many deranged?
As a real capitalist, I outsource my labor. I got too tired.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
By the way, for the record, there is a understandable and very real environment of fear that women live in, right? When they're walking home alone at night. And these guys are the very same people that literally say, like, women need to get the f over that kind of fear, as a direct consequence of how much violence and stalking and predatory behavior that women experience with regular frequency, much higher than the instance of, like, black on white crime that this dipshit is talking about here, okay? And how normalized that sort of behavior is, and how a lot of men just don't even realize that they're doing it in many circumstances, to be as charitable as possible in this circumstance. Like, it's just, many of them do know, and they don't give a shit, obviously. Like, whether it be, a snide remark, or whether it be just, like, following someone. Like, women are in a constant state of panic, especially at night when they're walking alone. That is the real, actual economy of information, right? That's the actual economy of information, not whatever the f this guy's talking about. But of course, when women bring that up, these are the first people to say, "Oh, you're ridiculous. You're imagining things. Shut the f up." And yeah, that's just men across the board, not a specific race, obviously. Okay? He turns around and says, like, that's discrimination against men.
Okay.
Proportionally far fewer.
But how many? How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it
No,
up.
I
I
mean,
don't have
you're
it in
very
front of
big
me.
on, you're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience.
Okay.
Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on.
Such an omega ass take. You tell women not to be afraid of being assaulted, but you're afraid of some black kids. Yeah, exactly. No, that's what it is. He's like, black teenagers terrify me down to the bone. Do you understand? He's like, you don't understand. You don't know how terrifying it is. Okay. You don't understand how terrifying it is to just walk by a gaggle of black teenagers. They might say something about my outfit. This is devastating to me personally, and I am so scared, okay? It's the economy of information. Every time he goes to like Costco or whatever and comes back home, he's like, wow, another day where I've avoided murder. It was crazy.
And I would add to that, you know, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
But
Carmelo
how many
Anthony
times has it
stabbed
been
him in the
perpetrated
neck.
by white people?
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point.
But you're
And then
implying
not
that
only
white
did-
people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of course,
I never said white people don't do it.
deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either
No
know,
disagreement.
you neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry.
Sometimes I go back and forth on this, okay? Because sometimes I feel like Piers is cooking him, and in other instances, almost feels like a Kanye West, Alex Jones type situation where he's like, "Don't say the quiet part out loud. What are you doing?" Like, I can't tell if Piers Morgan is telling him how to be better at doing like racist dog whistles, or if he actually has like a significant disagreement with what Nick Fuentes is saying and doing. Because it literally feels like he's like, well, I agree with you on some of these things, right? But you're saying you're racist. Don't concede on being racist from the start. You're doing a bad job, you know? Reminder that Nick Fuentes is such a bitch-made pussycock about his views that when he was literally asked by a cop if he was a white supremacist, he said he wasn't. Yes. When asked by a cop if he was actually a white supremacist, Nick Fuentes said, no, I'm Mexican. My last name is Fuentes. He did do that. Yeah, that's on camera, body camera specifically.
The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white...
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, no, totally, dude. That's how crime... Like, this stuff sounds so stupid to me. I don't know. It's just like, that's how crime manifests because black people are narcissistic. Like, how stupid of an argument is this? When you reduce it, when you actually try to whittle this argument down to its core, and what he has down there is basically, well, you know, black people are narcissistic because they've been told that they were victims of slavery, which they were generationally and historically. What the f are we talking about? Like, what do you think is he a slavery didn't happen truther as well? Like, I don't know where he's coming from, but like when you reduce it down to like, wow, it's you know, it's because black people are narcissistic and feel like they have no accountability. That's why they do crimes. It's so stupid. Really, that's the reason? Who has a sense of entitlement in this country? Random black people growing up in impoverished neighborhoods, or I don't know, rich white people. Who do you feel like, if that is how crime manifests, who do you feel like has a higher sense of entitlement? I mean, Nick Fuentes has an insane level of entitlement. Maybe it's because that's the Mexican half. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. It's just he is of mixed race, of ethnic background. So maybe that's the reason why he has this sense of entitlement. It's ridiculous. It's so stupid. Like, seriously, when you ask someone sincerely, okay, like, what do you think is the reason for crime? Poverty and systemic discrimination, or I don't know, cultural attitudes and narcissism? if you turn around and say cultural attitudes and narcissism, you're an idiot. I don't know. It just blows my mind that this is a serious point of contention here.
White man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we've been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media. On
so
the
just to
body
be clear,
cam footage,
you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And who are narcissists?
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on
you're
me.
ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So
That's where you went with that, Piers? What the bro, what the is this? What is happening? Are they having a meet off? Like, what's going on? What the this is off the rails, bro. What the like, there is so much you can shit on at least this version of Kanye West over, and he's basically calling him uppity. That's crazy. Like, that is crazy, because that's what Nick was doing, right? Like, he's saying, it's the classic, again, 1940s racism that he keeps bringing back for some weird reason, whether he's like talking about jalopies and pants around their ankles, or how he's saying uppity, right? Like, that's what the argument is. It's a racialized term. For those of you who don't know, you probably might not have heard it, because most new age racists don't even say the term anymore. And it's crazy to me that Piers Morgan came in and was like, well, guess what? You know who's really uppity? Kanye West, which is crazy. That's what is happening here. But he's racist? Yes. It is a racialized term most commonly used against black people to say that black people don't know their position in society, and they are, in the basically what Nick Fuentes was describing. It's to say all of that they are narcissistic, and that black people are, like, literally, if you want to understand what the descriptor is, what the descriptor is for uppity, it's basically what Nick Fuentes just described without saying the word. Yeah, acting above your station, and now Piers Morgan is basically turning around and going, well, Kanye West is like that, which is crazy.
He's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life.
I have, yeah.
Nick Fuentes is saying all black people are narcissistic and trying to reach above their station and don't know their place in civilized society because they're barbaric. You're turning around and saying, well, Kanye West is like that. Even if Kanye West is a narcissist, this is not the appropriate angle of attack here, because it almost comes across as you saying that Kanye West doesn't know his station. He said epitome, right? Not uppity, I think. No. He said Kanye West is the epitome of what you described, when Nick Fuentes wasn't actually describing like the particular personality of one person. He was describing how black people operate in general.
Okay, well, then he's nothing but polite, considerate.
He seemed very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
you keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black? Because you're being very rude by interrupting me right now.
To you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all. But we're talking
he's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jews. answered emphatically that you turned to anti-Semitism. In your interview with Stephen Crowder last week, you answered emphatically that you don't hate all Jews. Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it, I can show you, I can name the names, I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
I wonder if, like, this level of platforming Nick Fuentes is like unrestrained conspiratorial anti-Semitism will cause liberals to understand where I'm coming from when I describe my position on Israel. Or I wonder if they even make that distinction where they just go, nah, you're anti-Israel, you're the same as Nick Fuentes. Why are we platforming him? Here. This was live streamed 9 hours ago. It had 88,000 views while it was going live, and it already has 1.2 million views. So no, I'm not platforming it. It's got 1.2 million views in 9 hours. Yeah, I know. You don't have to insert Elon Musk in this conversation, Megaphonics. Yes, Elon Musk believes what Nick Fuentes is saying here as well.
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry
what do you
address.
mean? But Nick, what do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States or Europe or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip, I read what they write. I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as...
He's actually cooking up bush off the top of his head. No, everything he said, there is a... Yes, world Jewry is both utilized by Nazis historically, but also is a real conference. He's not wrong about that. Like when someone uses Jewry, the Nazis have used the term international Jewry, world Jewry, but also it is a terminology that is that's also utilized by like Jewish advocacy groups as well. Yeah, see, the State of World Jewry address by Barry Weiss. The inaugural State of World Jewry address was given in 1980 by Abba Eban. Over the 4 decades that followed, Eban's epochal speech was followed by those from luminaries, including Elie Wiesel, It's like, Christians doing global Christian conferences or some shit like that, right? The reason why he is hyper focusing on the Jewish element is because he hates Jews. But the reason why that kind of statement, is actually more salient now than ever before and invites scrutiny and skepticism is because most of these conferences, unfortunately, have actually revolved around defending Israel or have been attended by people who are ultra-Zionists. This does not mean that there is a monolithic understanding of Israel amongst the Jewish population, but that is what Nick Fuentes is claiming. And the biggest problem here is not just that Nick Fuentes is claiming this, but also a lot of Jewish Zionists will also say this as well, not realizing that that doesn't actually create an environment of protection against Israel, but instead makes people who are not as invested in the continuation of Israel as an apartheid state go, oh, that's weird. That's kind of up. Do you understand? But yeah, it's like NAACP, right? Just because it has the word colored in it doesn't, make it the same when Nick Fuentes is referring to black people like that. Do you see what I mean?
It's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized and they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly.
Oh, God. Oh, I actually love Jews. Source, the Bible. This kind of shit does make me unironically an r/Reddit atheist, bro. He's just like, yo, you don't understand. I love Jews. The Bible says we gotta love Jews. Catholics are mandated to love Jews is also funny, considering that until recently, Catholicism hadn't gotten the patch where it was like, hey, maybe we should stop saying Jews are Christ killers. Like that's a couple decades old, man. Saying that Catholics especially love Jews is crazy.
Interviews, I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is the Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
Well, that's weird because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ.
No. Okay. Listen. Oh, he got his ass. Oh, that was good. That was good. Listen. That's that classic nasty ass British journalist move right there. Oh my God, that was okay. I can't believe I'm handing Piers his flowers here. That was funny. That's a good clip. That's a good ass clip. Jesus Christ. Let's see what he
with
said.
The Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
The Jews and Christians have never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian, and of course there have been Christians and there have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts, Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples, they've never been aligned.
I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute what you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. And I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends, I have Jewish friends, we're both Catholics, therefore we're Christians. So it doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I want to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all.
Wow, he's so woke. He's actually doing the, he's actually saying like, the nobody cares about what King Leopold did. He's woke Fuentes, dude. Yeah, this is the new dark woke meta.
All times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow. Because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
Yeah, I do actually. I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that?
So
8 million?
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust?
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
So why have you doubted the numbers?
Yeah, he's doing a 6-7 meme, and you dumb fucks are literally hitting it. And I mean, this is it. This is the whole point, right? You can't when you argue and debate with fascists like and Holocaust revisionists and shit, like they're going to have an entirely separate set of bullshit facts that they will draw from, and it's a deep well because there have been years and years, just like the Lost Cause, just like the Daughters of the Confederacy. They took that L and then they never let go of it, and for years and years and years they concocted whatever narrative they could in an effort to downplay it, and also simultaneously, like it's not as serious, because if you're a Jewish person that's been taught about this, mechanized version of death that Jews experienced, like it's and you have immediate relatives in your family that were around when that shit was happening still, right? It's going to obviously invoke a sense of emotion, but if you're a Nazi, you could just like joke around about it. It doesn't matter. And the moment that you can joke around about it and the other side can't because they take it, seriously, then you lost the argument technically because you got emotional.
In the past.
I'll tell you why. I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative, and I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends, to tell you the truth, is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries. And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West.
Yeah, he starts off with the debate. And then when it's not a disputed fact. And then he brings it to an environment of censorship. And the reason why there is an environment of censorship around this sort of thing is because it was a telltale marker of fascism for the longest time, especially in countries that were destroyed by fascist movements. It's just a great way to figure out the canary in the coal mine. Although many of these previous ways of trying to suppress or cast aside growing fascist movements, many of the methods that were adopted were then also greatly abused to actively go after any kind of critic of Israel. And at this point, you arrive at someone like Nick Fuentes, who is now seen as like a sincere defender of Palestinians for this reason. You gave too much room for fascists to grow with no alternatives, with no room to grow for all of the anti-fascist movements. And it took less than 100 years for society to basically snap back in that direction.
No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100?
How is Nick wrong about this? See, he's going to cynically tie this back to Palestine, right? He's right about this. I'm not. What the how is Nick wrong about questioning the numbers in the Holocaust? What the are you talking about? This is not a subject matter that is in dispute. It's one of the most chronicled atrocities of all time. You can talk about why it's one of the most chronicled atrocities of all time. You can even go so far as to write an entire book about how the Holocaust played a formative role in justifying the creation of a fascist settler colonial state, and how the reminder is cynically weaponized to justify the continued atrocities that Palestinian people are subjected to. Okay, that part is true. You know who wrote about it? Norm Finkelstein did, as a matter of fact, the son of 2 Holocaust survivors, as a matter of fact. So that part is not in dispute, but the numbers are they're not questioned for good reason, not because of like an environment of fear surrounding it. But the reason why there was censorship around this sort of stuff is the same reason why there's censorship around wearing the banner of the Nazis, right? Because these are telltale, or used to be telltale markers, and still are telltale markers of fascism. And even in liberal societies in Europe, telltale markers of fascism were banned for understandable reasons. Okay? Do you not understand? It's no different. Holocaust denial or Holocaust revisionism is banned in this for the same exact reasons why wearing a swastika is banned in European society. Because it's a clear-cut marker that you are a fascist, you are a Nazi. This guy said, wait, hold on. Not as bad as communism in USSR and China, but yeah, Nazism is the worst regime in recent history. Anyway,
and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job. That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you'd want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail.
Yeah, notice how he doesn't talk about the other subsequent bans, just this one. There's a reason for that, because he knows that argument is better for optics in general than to say, why can't I wear a swastika if I want to? Because those are the same reasons, okay? Holocaust denial is censored for the exact same reason that wearing a swastika is censored, okay? That's it. There is discourse around the Holocaust. You can engage in an academic debate even, okay? And many people do in colleges and in academic institutions and whatnot, okay? There's a difference between that. There's a difference between that and outright Holocaust denial or Holocaust revisionism the way that Nick Fuentes is doing, because he's signaling to his audience that he's a neo-Nazi. And while it is not illegal to do so in the United States of America, it is illegal in some European countries.
And is banned, and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
But there is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis in the trials after the war confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy it, the amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials and for historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died.
No, they don't care about ideological purity of this sort. Some might, but most of them don't. Most of them understand that you have to say those sorts of things when you go to mainstream media, and they don't even care whether it was like 6 million. They literally will say it didn't happen, but if it did, it was good, and actually more of it should happen. So for them, it's not, you know, like there is no such gotcha. There is no like ideological purity that you can try, like an ideological standard that you can bring forward here. And that's also another reason why, you know, arguing with Nazis is always a silly endeavor.
In the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than
well,
that.
It could be higher. That is true.
I think it's at least.
But you
I think you're
accept
right.
at least.
It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But
Okay.
it could be 100
well,
times
people
more
are
than
gonna
that.
be, okay, the people are going to be...
Yeah, see, he keeps like insincerely signaling, oh, no, it's even more than that. It's even more than that.
But let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, you know, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yep.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries. And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be imprisoned.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized, right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized. It's my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years?
It's crazy that these people be like, oh, I want free speech. Even like Piers Morgan is like, oh, I think free speech is fostering debate. When in fact, it's the very same people that were like, you know, doing everything in their power to deplatform people who were pro-Palestine. I guess with respect to Piers, at least he did offer a platform to pro-Palestinian sentiment. But Matt Walsh asked Ben Shapiro if he could watch this video. Too soon killed me. Piers playing Nick's greatest hits and Nick sitting back like Kobe watching his own highlights. Law. Piers not understanding per capita or Catholic doctrine was hilarious. I don't think he went the way that Piers hoped he would. Yeah, it's all overwhelmingly, I assume it's overwhelmingly brigaded.
It would be criminalized. It's my personal view.
I'm in Sweden. I stopped learning Arabic to watch this. Uncensored show, but they cut out what Kyan said. Piers pretending to know per capita will never not be, to not know per capita will never not be funny. Ugh, Matt Walsh is still a thing. No, they're dunking on Matt Walsh. They're saying Matt Walsh asked Ben Shapiro to watch this video. Groypers are the one community that brigade harder than DGG/H3. I mean, it's interesting because DGG and Groypers were hand in hand for the longest time. And I think I'm being so serious about this. I think Destiny lost more audience members to the Groypers, including his literal son, than he actually won from the Groypers back to his side. It's the obvious limitations of having a liberal worldview. It's still the same equation of like, why have diet soda when you can have the full strength soda? What do you think that would be a good counter argument towards let the evidence speak for itself? What do you mean? The evidence does speak for itself. I already explained it to you. The reason why Holocaust denial is banned is the same reason why wearing a swastika is banned, okay? Saying Heil Hitler is banned or Sig Heiling in public is banned in some of these places. They don't have the same extent of free speech, the same expansive definition of free speech that we do here in the United States of America. And that is but it's the same principle, okay? There are limitations to free speech in every society, including in the United States of America. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't threaten someone with violence. You can't defame people without punishments. Obviously, it's not a criminal punishment for defamation, but basically, there are limitations to speech everywhere, including in the United States of America, including on places like 4chan Poll. So that already exists. It's just about whether or not you think the current limitations are appropriate or not. And if your argument is, why is this limitation there? I'm explaining it to you. It's because these societies that were wrecked by Nazi ideology and fascist ideology do not want to offer any daylight or any any sunlight to said Nazi ideology. There's no question Destiny lost more than he gained. Dude was profoundly narcissistic moron thinking he could own Fuentes. Worse off, he rocket shipped this dude single-handedly back in the mainstream internet commentary sphere. Oh, 100%. I agree with that, yes. I mean, he admitted to doing so personally. And I think it's one of the things that he's the most embarrassed by. In any case, the reason why it exists is the same reason why you can't wear a swastika, but obviously Nick can't defend wearing a swastika in public as an act of free speech, because most people will go, oh, that's gross. But at least this part, arguing over the numbers of dead Jewish people in the Holocaust, is more permissible. It's more like the average person can hear that and go, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, huh? Okay? Ultimately, this is the problem with dealing with Nazis who engage in Nazi propaganda. Their goal is to basically act as though they're opening your conscience, or opening your conscience to the real truth, the secret truths that you've been sheltered from.
I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog-marched to prison cells for stuff they put on social media. Right? So, yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And there'll be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives, and I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that, because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been, there's never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against how.
Yeah, again, we've moved 18 goalposts away from like the real reason, the real ambition behind this. Oh, dude, he really cares about he really cares about everybody learning about the number of Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. That's why he's like, we shouldn't have an environment of censorship, because otherwise people start questioning it. Like, we need to learn the nuance of Nazism. We need to learn the both sides in this. Yeah, I mean, I guess there is like at least some environment of fear still that he chooses to do this kind of thing instead of just like saying it with his whole ass chest.
Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist, and the social consequences still persist. And I think that that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about, lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way, and no other ethnic group has a get-out-of-jail-free card. Just play that. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust, you can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponized the Holocaust for their own personal get-out-of-jail-free, or whatever you called it.
You don't know anyone that does that? That believes that?
I'm sure there are some people that do that, but it's such a ridiculous generalization. You know, the truth is that most Jewish people have lost relatives in the Holocaust.
Bro, Israel being tied to Judaism is it was a ticking time bomb. Okay? It was a ticking time bomb. Such arrogance to assume that this would not inevitably blow up in everybody's faces. What a gift to neo-Nazis like Nick Fuentes. It's crazy. It's like eventually people were going to go, hey, this stuff is kind of crazy. You're doing like 17th century style sieges over here. We don't do this kind of stuff, especially not in broad daylight, and especially not with like the full purview and legal protection of the beautiful liberal Western world and Western society. We're supposed to be advanced. People were taught that this kind of stuff is unacceptable. And for the longest time, and people still do it. People still lean into it. It was, oh, it's just anti-Semitism if you speak out against this. So now, people like Nick Fuentes, who despise Jewish people and you know, want to kill Jewish people and do whatever the Hitler did, can turn around and act as though they're simply talking about this from the point of view of criticizing Israel.
Of course. Stefan, I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
Hitler was a and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very cool?
Then we should treat conflating Judaism with Zionism within leftist circles with the same full-chested, unambiguous stigma that we treat advocating for Zionism because it is advocating for Zionism. There should be no moral leeway given in this matter. What the fuck are you talking about? Yes, I shit on people who tie Judaism and Zionism together with regular frequency. Yeah, I do it all the time. What do you mean? What? Within leftist circles? I don't know what you mean by that.
Yes, I do.
And I'm
tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because he also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to give a shit. I'm going to be honest. He is anti-Semitic, so he's going to be like...
My grandmother on my father's side ended up being one out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking him why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
See, that's the reality of...
God. It's crazy to assume that a straight up neo-Nazi is going to turn around and be like, oh my God, your feelings are hurt? That's crazy. He likes it, man. Why the would he care about your mom? Like, that's insane. That's an insane thing to be like, oh, but you don't... Yeah, say it to my face. Yeah, he will probably. What the? This is quite literally the worst angle of attack here. Okay.
Your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very cool?
I also despise people that do this equivocation between Stalin and Hitler. Okay, it's ridiculous. Criticisms of Stalin are perfectly valid. This level of equivocation is insane because Stalin did technically liberate, you know, a big chunk of your family, your father and present company aside. So, the f are we talking about?
The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years.
Directly.
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching. You know,
you might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family
oh my gosh,
were murdered.
Yeah, we got all that. Me mom, like we're, you know, I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mom got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say Hitler's very
I don't care. I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. And what do you mean by Hitler is very cool? Because I think he's very a monster.
Okay. And that's a clip. I think he's very a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
I mean,
do.
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow
He
up?
murdered
That
12
is just
million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million
Okay.
people. What is very cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II and it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's compelling and it's cool. And, you know, we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get.
I think saying, ha ha ha, that's a clip is way more cringe than him saying accidentally, he's very a monster. Ha ha ha, that's a clip. Oh my God, dude.
An old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mom. And it's like, shut up. Like, you know, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if half your family
years ago,
you think if half your family had been wiped out by very cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy, or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers? Do you think that you would find it very cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again the mask slips, and it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what.
I mean, what is the productivity of this conversation? You got him to like openly say he thinks Hitler is based and cool. You got him to do Holocaust revisionism. You got him to say that he's a racist. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just confusing. You could have just like played his greatest hits on your own and just been like, this guy sucks. Am I right? And be done with it. He's just sitting there and mocking you. It's great for his audience, you know? I don't know. I just think it is very, very dangerous stuff that we're entertaining. I was going to cover one more aspect of the conversation between Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan, which was his takes on Israel and how he actually loves Israel.
This is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer, and we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying he's a really monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about?
Well, you're not
he's a monster.
You're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right?
I know.
You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain, right? And
wait, how old is Nick Fuentes? I thought he was like 22. He's 28? 27? Bro, what? He's 27 and he talks like that? Bro, he's about to be 30. The reason why I thought that was because he still lives in his mom and dad's basement. And also, he's doing like 6-7 memes and shit, unironically. So for me, and he's a virgin. Like he is openly still very much a virgin and like hates women and stuff like that. You're supposed to kind of grow out of at least some of this stuff by accident. Lies he had sex with Destiny? Okay, but like a woman virgin. A virgin for having sex with women.
At some stage, that brain is taking you off these rabbit
Is this an
warrens.
interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how cool Hitler is and to dismiss.
Okay, yeah, we got it. He loves Hitler, okay?
Any sense of love for our own civilization? I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners, for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives.
Honestly,
no,
Nick
it's true. And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's a crock.
What
We
you
don't want to
just
hear
said-
any
what
more
you
about
just
me
said-
mom and me dad.
What
That's
you
the crock
just
of shit.
no, listen. What you just said is a crock of shit, and you
It's
know
true.
it.
It's
And
called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize
No,
this stuff.
you know.
You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like what you
I'm
just
banned
said.
from banking.
you
I'm
know
banned
it-
from banking and credit card.
Okay, that's the other thing that he also presents as a point of like honesty for himself. And I saw a Nick Fuentes interview that he did, and it turns out the reason why they actually quote unquote debanked him was not because of the anti-Semitism or whatever. The brief moment where they actually banned his froze his bank accounts was because of January 6th. So he was one of the people at January 6th, if you guys don't remember. And right before he went to January 6th, right before he went to January 6th and was like seen as one of the leaders and bussing people in and whatever, so did Charlie Kirk, for the record. He got $250,000 in a crypto donation, okay? And it was from a foreign account. It was from the wallet of a foreigner. And because he got this $250,000 crypto donation, or was it $500,000? Was it? I thought it was $250,000. And then he went to January 6th. The FBI investigated him. It was $500K. Okay, yeah. And because he was doing this shit at January 6th, after he had gotten $500,000 of foreign donation, or I think it's $250,000. I don't know why people are saying $500,000. They understandably investigated it. And in the process of investigation, they froze his assets. And the story that Nick Fuentes tells, I mean, he's clearly, a free person. So, but the story he tells is that it was a French hacker, which, by the way, what does Candace Owens know? Because the French are at it again. It was a French hacker who had stolen a bunch of cryptocurrency from people and actually sent it to Nick Fuentes and numerous other people who this guy thought were defending the white race. Okay. And then the French hacker committed suicide afterwards. So that is the reason why his bank accounts were actually frozen, not because of like Israel or something. The reason why his bank accounts were frozen is because the FBI investigated his involvement and potential ties to foreign donors in inciting January 6th, which is what he did, this is what he did on January 6th.
Keep moving towards the Capitol. It appears we are taking the Capitol. And don't relax, never relax. Yeah! The Capitol! Break down the barriers and disregard the police. This Capitol belongs to us. Yeah! We're evacuating the Capitol. We're evacuating the Capitol. Evacuating the Capitol.
Dude, how awesome was this shit? One of the funnest moments on this broadcast was when we were in real time reacting to the January 6th insurrection. It was so funny. Anyway, but that was the reason for his debanking, not because of Israel. All right, let's.
Do you know who you're talking to? I do it for money.
and by the
How
way-
much money you
and by
make?
the
Your
way,
company's
that
worth
shouldn't-
$100 million.
and by-
Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America.
And you shouldn't
I'm
have
banned from
been.
processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm
Well,
doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you, you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened to
Then
you?
don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a
How
grift.
much money- how much
if I
money
wanted to
are
be
you-
a grifter, I'd be like you,
How
and
much
I would
money
go
are-
and say,
If all the J6s got pardoned, why would Fuentes' bank account still be locked? I don't think it is. I think he was debanked during the investigation. I don't think he is any longer. I think he's just lying if he's still saying that his bank accounts are still frozen.
How much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now. Yeah. Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people.
Okay, Cap, that's Candace Owens. Okay, put some respect on her name. That's actually the one true anti-Semite. Okay, that's Cap. Not Kai. No, of course not Kai. Candace Owens is doing bigger numbers than Kai is. Okay, Candace Owens is doing Kai during the subathon numbers. What are you talking about? And also, his numbers are on Rumble. It's one of the most botted websites of all time, so I don't really believe his numbers anyway.
agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys
I'm
overplayed
not
your
done
hand.
hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three
we're
sons.
not listening
I've
to
got
crime
three
minorities
sons.
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about
Yeah, well.
slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more.
Sound like girls.
They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation to saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws, and that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called The Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality. We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic.
This is just, again, the maximalist position of the right, by the way. So remember, if you're wondering how Nick Fuentes has risen to such prominence, what he's saying is the exact same thing that Piers Morgan and many other right-wingers say all the time, when they're like, oh, this is suicidal empathy. Okay? This is just more of that way of thinking. He's saying, oh, you're demonstrating suicidal empathy. This open society bullshit is actually destroying the Western world, destroying Western civilization.
And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth. Right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at.
Except he's using words like iconoclast, and I think there is a market that doesn't want that and wants whatever the Candace Owens is cooking up.
This, our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them.
Whiteness is a socio-political construct that was designed on the boundaries of proximity to blackness. You literally made it up to hurt yourself later down the line. You aren't technically white, okay? You're Mexican. You got Mexican in you, okay? Depending on which time Nick Fuentes existed, Nick Fuentes, his parents wouldn't even be considered white. Because one side's Italian, the other side is Italian and or Irish and Mexican. So there isn't a single side of him that would be considered white in the way that we understand it, depending on which time frame we're looking at in American history and American culture. The reason why I bring that up is because Mexican is a nationality. Oh my God, stop chirping Flexicans, okay? I know you don't want me to say that. I know, I got it. Well, when you say that, you actually agree with Nick Fuentes, just so you know. He's white though. He's white Mexican. He's a descendant of colonizers. He has Spanish blood in him. All this shit. That's what he says to justify his whiteness. I understand why you don't want Mexicans to be associated with this white supremacist, but you have to stop literally giving him his argument. No, I don't. You just need to be more accurate. Okay. I know Mexican's a nationality, man. Shut the f up. I know you can be a white Mexican. Jesus Christ. He literally described it. In any case, the point I'm trying to make here is not about whether he is of Mexican nationality or Mexican descent. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is that the term whiteness is a made up construct that changes and evolves throughout time. Sometimes it expands, okay? Sometimes it shrinks. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because it was destined, because it's created around the boundaries of purity, it was destined to shrink. Because the only way that you can stop the great replacement of whites going away or whatever is if you legislate anti-miscegenation laws again. Do you understand? That's it. That's it. You can't, there's no other way around it, because it's not a real genocide if the genocide that's happening, in air quotes, is happening because people are just race mixing. People are just falling in love with of members of different races, different nationalities, different ethnicities. Okay? It's so stupid.
When they talk about compassion, there's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
In Gaza, it's against
How many
whites.
Christians are there in the world? Like me and
1
you.
point some billion.
Yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
Who am I losing to?
white people,
Who
these
am I
poor
losing
old
to?
white people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it. Mass migration. Oh, you're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way.
This is the important part. This is once again where he uses radical honesty, because it is a truth nuke. It is a truke. He's right. Israel is a fascist country. Israel is an ethno-state. Israel has a supremacist ethno-state project. It is objectively fascist. Zionism is a fascist ideology. And that is precisely why Nick Fuentes, who is a Christian nationalist, white supremacist fascist, despite the fact that his parents are ethnics, as he said, look at Piers Morgan's face right now. This is precisely the reason why liberals and conservatives are ill-equipped to deal with this kind of statement. Okay? That's it. He wants to do Israel, but for what he has declared is white America. Okay? And I say his own declaration of white America because some old school white supremacists would probably not consider him to be a part of the in-group there.
It would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people?
This is why I always say, like, I hate people like Nick Fuentes for the same reason why I hate people like Itamar Ben-Gvir or Benjamin Netanyahu or Smotrich or any number of different variants of the same kind of fascist Zionist, Jewish supremacist ideology, the people that advance that cause. There is very little difference, very little daylight ideologically between Jonathan Greenblatt and Nick Fuentes. Okay? The targets are a little different, but ultimately, it's the same exact self-destructive, suicidal, very dangerous, very violent ideology. It's an ideology of fascism. That's the issue here. In many instances, it almost feels like neo-Nazis like Nick Fuentes are jealous. They're jealous. They keep saying, why do Jews get to do this, but we can't?
Being born that are white, where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be an Israel. In 50 years, there isn't going to be a white Christendom.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
But you're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You've talked about.
Are we done talking about white genocide?
Well, no,
I'm
coming to the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands.
Yeah, he's not trying to contribute to white genocide because he is a descendant of ethnics.
Take a look.
That's true.
Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You talk too much, you're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly, so they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children? Therefore, you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population. I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic, as you know, to have sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know, my wife would be screaming about that. Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things.
Yeah, it's because he likes penis. No disrespect. Obviously, it has nothing to do with his morally repugnant worldview. He just happens to also be gay. There are moms with kids that listen to Fuentes in front of their kids. What the?
Little bucket of fried chicken, cheeseburger. I'm very irritated. I'm very agitated. I'm very pissed off. I'm very low.
First steps recorded while listening to Nick Fuentes. Poor kid never even had a chance. I disagree. There's a very high likelihood that this kid will probably not turn out to be a Nazi. Let's be real. Even though I can think of one child who also was inundated with this kind of neo-Nazi sentiment and then turned into a neo-Nazi himself. That, of course, is Sex Pestany's child, but...
It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my
he was taking his first steps to turn the TV off.
Followers, I tell them to get married. But what's happening with women...
You literally just told your followers... Well, hang on. In that clip, you literally told followers, women, they get old, they get fat, they get ugly, they get very annoying. So where's the incentive to get married to women? There isn't one. You're actively telling them the opposite.
You're extrapolating a lot.
No joke. Piers did a good job shining a light on this. Piers did do a good job. The crescendo of all this when Nick says you just got clipped after having a Holocaust surviving family member describing it all, and he laughs. I know several people that were a fan of Nick and told him to watch this through, and two of them, I didn't realize that two of them didn't realize that he's a full-on Nazi. Most people think he's trolling. I mean, you could have just shown him some Nazi clips and probably gotten away with, you know, probably would have been able to explain to people that he is a neo-Nazi for sure without having this entire back and forth. But I will say, I will say that there is one part of what you're saying that is correct. A lot of normies don't know that Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. A lot of normies have only seen some of his clips where he basically comes across like maybe even a progressive liberal. Okay? Because in the clip economy, you can manipulate massive audiences. You can just, it depends on where you cut the clip. And as I've said before, all of, like, Nick Fuentes' fan base does the exact opposite of what my haters do to me, right? Or in some ways, they do the exact same thing. They clip both of us out of context. They clip him out of context to show him in a favorable light to a much broader audience. They clip me out of context to show the exact opposite of what I'm actually saying to a much broader audience. And they spam that shit nonstop. This creates this weird dynamic where there are a lot of normies who might encounter Nick Fuentes' clips, not realize the Nazi, and might encounter my clips and think I'm a Nazi. That's why I constantly talk about the slop tubers, the slop tubers and the supposedly apolitical grifters that spend every waking moment actively trying to present me as this dangerous threat to American existence. Do you understand? So I'm sure there are plenty of people that have seen like his clips on Israel, his clips on Gaza, because there are a million of those that are all over the timeline where people are like, damn, who's this young kid who's speaking with absolute conviction on this morally repugnant incident that's taking place? And that's how he was able to garner the attention of a lot larger of an audience. Now, not every single one of them are going to convert to watching him on Rumble, right? And not every single one of them are going to know what his background is, what his actual worldview is. But a big part of the reason why is because for a lot of people, a lot of their understanding of politics is basically just off of vibes and off of a increasingly shorter and shorter attention span based economy. So in that regard, if they're only getting inundated with like fairly positive clips where he's just shitting on Israel, okay, but they've seen like the dog collar, October 7, and numerous other things like the brothel incident. He's a sex pest. He went to a brothel, like not knowing where that kind of stuff is coming from. Of course, they're going to be like, no, this is some guy is way worse than Nick Fuentes. But bro, how can you base politics on vibes and not policy? What do you mean? Most people are just totally removed from, they're totally removed from policy. They don't understand ideology. They don't understand politics. They're just operating off of vibes. The vibes are really around Israel, so they're looking for someone who's giving them that. I've been watching you for this many years, and it's still wild how the weird hate comes at you. Yeah, I mean, there is just a robust market that has grown over the many years. But most people are politically illiterate. They have no understanding of politics whatsoever. And there's also an assortment of different like reactionary opinions that even the most progressive people have. That's why we have different terms like TERFs and SWERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, sex work exclusionary radical feminists. These are people who otherwise are seen as like very progressive individuals, but they just despise sex work, for example, or despise trans people, for example. And on that one instance, they become like the most reactionary person of all time. I'll give you another example. Liberal Zionists. Some of these liberal Zionists are incredibly progressive people, but when it comes to Israel, they turn into Adolf Hitler. A lot of people do this. So if you're used to hearing progressive politics from a person, right? You're used to hearing like a lot of progressive takes from a person. You like that person. You've developed a sense of respect for that person. And then all of a sudden, on the issue of Israel, that person turns around and sounds like Adolf Hitler and starts warning you against like dangerous, scary anti-Israel people. Okay? There's a term for this in the leftist circles called progressive except for Palestine. Okay? That's how common this is. So when you hear about that from a person that you trust, you go, okay, you know what? That is dangerous. I'm not gonna listen to that guy. That's it.
Complain. Just quoting you back yourself again.
No, but you're extrapolating and saying, well, you say women are annoying, so therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land, but it's going to be
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
Oh, you should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called the Groy-bets, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually? Look, just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I've no idea what the answer is, and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted.
There's literally I've seen it on the timeline. There's a black girl on TikTok. There's a huge Nick Fuentes fan and constantly talks about how much I suck. He's not even lying. There are definitely women on TikTok that love Nick Fuentes. It's insane.
To women?
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid. Wow.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's always free love.
Given you've never got laid.
Yeah. So this is also a generational divide. Okay. There are a lot of Gen Z men that will hear Nick Fuentes' response here and will actually agree with him. I do think that the gender wars have taken root in especially younger generations. And there are a lot of dudes who have just completely checked out of dating or trying to attract women at all. And they actually wear it on their sleeves. Like the incel stuff, the incel shit is actually completely out of control. So when he says like, no, of course I've never had sex with a woman, gross. Like there are a lot of incels out there in the Nick Fuentes audience that actually see that as a mark of pride.
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This, you know, you're talking about empathy and your kids are empathetic and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So we are going back to the way
another clip of yours about
you're a simp. You're too hungry for pussy. You're henpecked. Oh, I saw the AI image of George Washington. Yes. I watched this entire thing last night. It was awesome.
Women.
A lot of women want to be, and when I say, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics say.
But that's what you believe,
They
is
have
it?
fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped. But there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 62% of women have fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watched what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship?
Yeah, I don't know why he's talking about what women want. Not only, I mean, he's literally a gay virgin. Why the would he know about what women want? This is the other thing that really pisses me off about this shit is there are so many rudderless men out there, young boys, who tune into this frequency. And in many instances, their starting point, like their initial vulnerability stems from the confusing aspects of interpersonal communication with the opposite gender. Okay? Where they just get like super confused or they're super worried. They have like a sequence of failures and they're very vulnerable. So they start looking at like the manosphere for answers. And I think we all know how stupid those answers are. This is the maximum version of that when you're completely black-pilled. Maybe you start looks maxing, okay? And then obviously you don't fix the personality flaws that you have and you don't fix the confidence issues that you have. You have a sense of entitlement over women that like, you know, you're a good guy. Why won't they f me? I'm a good guy. Why won't they know? Why don't they give me the respect I deserve? And then after a sequence of understandable failures, because if you're looking for answers from the looks maxing community, you are going to fail. If you think that like those serial misogyny podcasts are going to teach you anything about how to talk to women, how to be around women, how to attract women, you're wrong. Then you go down an even darker path and you become black-pilled. And then you completely tap out of the dating marketplace. And then you start wearing it like a badge of honor.
I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women.
I'm passionate. It's an issue
You're
I'm
not passionate.
about.
You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex, when are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them. And that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll, they're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days will tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing. You're a misogynistic pig. Because
oh God, this shit is so cringe, dude. Jesus Christ. How can you not immediately reach for the nearest gun and just kill yourself after saying those words, like rapid fire, saying those words in a row? I don't understand it, genuinely. Oh my Lord, dude. I'll be honest. I do think that that stuff right there, this kind of statement is actually going to be very off-putting to normies, right? But for the terminally online, and there's an increasingly larger group of the terminally online, they love that shit. This is the guy he cited. Oh yeah, clavicular. I know.
No matter what.
Clavicular claims that young men should focus entirely on themselves, insisting women today are impossible to satisfy, even when their entire lives are provided for. Yeah, I retweeted this the other day. There's a whole subset of young guys who are so incredibly unlikable to women that they only hang out, look good for, and seek the attention and approval of other men, and then blame women for it instead of looking in the mirror. And the clavicular guy is the worst version of this because he is so, I mean, he is a train wreck, dude. He literally does methamphetamines to stay thin. Okay, he's the latest in the kick. He is a kick streamer. For those of you who don't know, he's been doing a lot of collabs with like Aiden Ross and many others. He got a jaw surgery. He was doing jaw breaking before he got a jaw surgery. He's all over my timeline, and it is insane, dude. He's 19, by the way. He looks like he's 30 now. But he's actually 19 years old.
Always wanting more. Okay, free yacht, free booze, free everything. Can the chat donate some? It's like, God damn.
I thought you had money. I'm entitled to your money. I'm entitled to your money.
And I said, how about we do a free birthday celebration? I thought you had money. It's like, bro, I swear. That's why, you know, once you get a girlfriend, don't get content and don't start getting fat. Stay in the best shape of your life, or else that bitch will. Even if you are in the.
Why is he all of a sudden up in my algorithm? He's absolutely the worst of the worst. The kick clipper accounts, they've been blasting him nonstop. If you become a kick streamer, they will bot you into oblivion on Reddit. They will bot you into oblivion on all of the clipper accounts on TikTok. They will try to cultivate a fan base for you, except no one actually ends up going and tuning into Kick. So it doesn't even translate the real viewership on Kick, but it does actually translate the real viewership on TikTok. Yeah. All of those clip accounts are sponsored by Steak or sponsored by Rubit, sponsored by all these like gambling ads. All of it unfortunately ties together. But yeah, he has this insane what do you call it? He has this like insane procedure. He's done so much shit to himself by the time he's 19. And all of it started off with the whole like lookism or looks maxing community. And I've talked about him and I've talked about the cookie verse or whatever before, if you recall. Young boys smoking meth and doing gay activities was new. I mean, yeah, but yeah, this is the incel manosphere. He was injecting his underage girlfriend with fat-reducing injections on stream. Yeah. You should do research on Meme House Productions. A lot of these kick streamers are in 360 deals, even Neon. Yeah, this is the type of shit that kids are watching on TikTok For You pages, by the way. What's the best way to counter this kind of man in the wild? What do you mean counter? This kind of problem takes care of itself. Let's be real. Oh yeah, he also spams the N-word every stream now. So that's the other thing. He like they all obviously he's a kick streamer, so but it's insane. How do we counter the popularity of the content is the real question. I mean, you just have to have popular role models on the other side, and there's plenty of people that are less insecure. There's plenty of people that aren't as insecure as these guys, because for a lot of people, their relatability comes from their deep-seated insecurities. Okay, so someone like what's his name, Joe Bartolozzi, is like an antidote to this type of shit, right? Because he's not a insecure wreck, and he is also a very popular content creator on TikTok. He's dope. So, you know, it's already you as well, fam. I mean, me to a certain degree. I think I might be a little too old. I'm probably a little too old for that. And not only that, but also my reputation with the youth has been so irreparably tarnished, I think, that most young people think like I'm whatever the they saw last. Because, you know, I'm not very, you know, I have my moments, but you know, people on it's difficult. People on TikTok already, like people on TikTok, even leftists on TikTok will regularly do call out posts on people like myself. So there are a lot of leftists that do that as well. My brother showed you to me years ago and he's only 18 now. No, I know. No, this isn't to say that I don't have young fans. I do. But it is pretty crazy that there is you know, a pro Anna Twitter, a pro Anna TikTok, but for guys this time. But I think it is literally because there's so many ultras and so many rad libs that identify as like leftists or progressives, and they spend most of their time shitting on other people that are also on the left. And not only that, but also obviously the entirety of the liberal content creators are constantly shitting on the left, and the entirety of the right-wing content creators are shitting on the left. All the apolitical people are shitting on the left. Everyone's shitting on the left. So if you're like a young boy and you haven't really thought about what your politics are, you literally never even open the door to leftist content. You never even broach that shit because either you are immediately branded as an annoying woke scold, which nobody likes, even though I'm not that, but it doesn't matter because the very fact that I'm not that also leads to a lot of people getting mad at me for not being that, right? People on the left get mad at me for not being an annoying woke scold. People on the right consistently call me an annoying woke scold. So it's a really shitty media environment to operate in.
I don't know what that is. I guess.
Well, come on. Let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home.
But for the record, all is not lost because, as I've said before, the antidote to all this shit is just like getting someone to tune into one video, one podcast, or one stream. That's all it will take, because it's all of these lies are held together by making sure no one actually encounters me without some sort of negative framing. And because there's a lot of content out there that will, give you a steady flow of fuck Hasan information, many people don't feel the need to actually, move into the other side. But when they do, they realize it's all lies. And then they become fans.
That all they do is fantasize about being beaten up. That's what they want. That they're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny, but actually you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer. And if I was in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yet here you are, 27 years old. And most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them.
I mean, he openly admitted to loving Adolf Hitler. I don't think he cares about being called a misogynist.
Never associate with women and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said you
these
were
words
a racist.
mean nothing to me. Oh, hang on. Can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label.
Okay.
You said, Nick Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down. Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
It's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
here's
I didn't give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to infer something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label of being a racist. No, you did. You said, I'm a racist. You gave yourself the label.
You're going to have to tone it down a little, all right? You're going to have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did.
You did.
But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you denied the Holocaust. And I'm not about the labels,
man. You didn't deny the Holocaust.
Past that.
As I said to you, look, Nick, I just wanted to go over the stuff that everyone uses out there about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview.
Okay.
Right? You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
I'm a maximalist. I'm a Holocaust.
That is significant.
I think it's more.
You did admit you're a racist, and you have spelled out a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you said you're not gay. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, and I own the labels, okay? But I just don't care that much about them.
That's fine.
I feel like the whole,
I'm not saying
this
you
is
have,
like a weird.
I'm not saying you have to
ahead.
care. Nick, you don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right? That's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I have. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been overtly hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile, angry, shouty match with you. I simply want you to spell out exactly what you've meant about all these things, and people can then be the judge of them. So let's take another break, and we'll...
Okay, we're done here. Piers did cook Nick with this and Clandis. I think the momentum has stopped. I mean, we'll see. He is a cockroach, okay? You have to remember, he's been deplatformed everywhere, and all it took was for Twitter to offer him a platform once again for him to like revitalize his career. That, and also the entire Western world turning on Israel after years and years of unlimited propaganda that was pro-Israel, where he became where he was seen as like an earnest champion in the anti-Israel cause.